3, 2, 1.
You're listening to It's Killing Me, where I, comedian Shane Kenny, unpack the history of mental health and all of the things that impact it. I want to start off our episode today with a quote by James Baldwin. You think your pain and heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world. But then you read. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive, who had ever been alive. As technology and entertainment have evolved, what James Baldwin said about books is how I feel about podcasts, subreddits, and also books. Connecting by sharing information is an antidote for alienation. Mental conditions are not like colds or cuts. Sometimes the symptoms never really go away. There's just an ever-fluctuating feeling that never fizzles out. Cue the music. Today we are unpacking anxiety with singer and rapper Chris Siders. He's performed all over the US and all over Europe. His music can be found on YouTube and Spotify. Chris, is there anything else I left out of your magnificence?
Just regular ass human. Like, that's all I want to be known as. Just another guy.
The humbleness makes us love you even more. So, when did you realize you were first dealing with anxiety?
Whew. Damn. Right off bat. So it didn't really occur to me until 2019. Yeah, and I had a therapist in college, throughout college, and I was in college for like 5 years at Cal State Monterey Bay. But I was diagnosed with severe anxiety and PTSD in 2019.
Wow.
And then that led to like, all right, how the hell did I get here? And then how I got there was when I was 12 years old, I was robbed at gunpoint by 3 gang members, and right down the street from my house. And And when they robbed me, there was like no cops, and they walked away, and I'm just a little 12-year-old in the parking lot, like shook, like what the fuck do I do? And they took my phone, they took my iPod, they took like $2 that I had on me, and so I went to a liquor store that was like in that same lot, and called my dad. My dad was the first one there. He worked at fucking Santa Monica, and like we're in like, have you ever been to the South Bay Galleria?
Yeah.
Yeah, that little parking lot across the way, off of fucking Hawthorne and Artesia.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that little parking structure. It happened over there. Oh, and yeah, so my dad pulled up, and like first one on the scene. Then my older brother pulled up with a bat, and it's crazy that my dad came from Santa Monica, but the police didn't get there until an hour later.
Holy crap.
And then they was talking about, oh, we're going to catch these guys and that. We never got a call from them. So then, reflecting back at that time, I was scared to go outside. I was always outside playing basketball with the homies, like shooting water guns and shit like that. And from what I remember, that was the start of me being an asshole towards my friends. I was so mean and like just rude and nasty, and started to I grew up Baptist, Christian Baptist, and I started to publicly denounce God, like there's no God and da da da. Like everything just
Punk
went,
rock.
everything just went like super bleak.
No gods, no managers.
and so then like I carried that mentality with me like in college, because now I'm like I started in South Central. Now I'm going to a place that I've never been to. Here's the other crazy thing. Like, I lived in that area my entire life, but I never seen downtown, Chinatown, Hollywood up until 2022, 2021. So, like, because the redlining is so insane out here. And, like, so when I went to college in Monterey County, a whole lot of space. Don't hear the ghetto bird all the time.
Yeah.
I'm around different cultures. I'm around different intersectionalities. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then like,
Monterey's chill.
Monterey's chill. Like it's a totally different vibe. But then that spiked my anxiety because I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't trust these rich hippies.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Yeah, and then
like facts though.
And then so then like there were other events where that contributed to my anxiety, like being falsely accused of sexual assault in college, being homeless after graduating from college for like a year and a half to 2 years, and how are y'all with like trigger warnings or like
we don't.
Okay,
yeah,
because it's a lot like with my personal story.
This is a safe space.
Yeah, man,
share it.
Because I was sexually assaulted twice when I was homeless, and I was jumped by 3 women when I was homeless. So, and one of those 3 women was my best friend, someone that I considered a best friend of 5 years. So, of course, again, anxiety, PTSD, paranoia through the roof, and I really keep things close to me. I know it looks like I'm really vulnerable in my music or my artistry, but no one doesn't really know deep why I'm the way I am. So yeah,
that's a skill. That is a skill I admire about you as an artist, is that you're vulnerable, but you're vulnerable on your terms.
I appreciate that, but at the same time it's kind of like I want to let you in, but it's just so hard. It's so hard because like I feel like people would weaponize that, just like the woman that falsely accused me of sexual assault, because I told her like I had like a rough upbringing in like my high school time, because I got into so many fights and it got to a point to where I almost took someone's life, and that's something that still like fucks me up to this day. And
that's a good sign though. That's a sign of empathy, and that you realize it was out of line. It would be bad if you were like listening to Cypress Hill's "How Can I Just Kill a Man" enthusiastically.
Damn. Yeah, like it's just not right. And then like when I let this person know that when I was like 19, she just went to like Title IX. Y'all know Title IX?
Refresh me.
So Title IX enforces like racial policies in regards to racial discrimination on college campuses and like sexual assault awareness, mainly I believe in the CSU and UC systems. I'm not sure beyond that, but yeah. So then she went to Title IX, and I was working for Title IX because I was doing a lot of community work, like surrounding like feminism, allyship, and just sexual assault awareness, and. Yeah, said like, oh, Chris had a history of this way back in high school, and like years ago. So then like now I'm feeling like criminalized and demonized, and I can't get out of this bubble this world is putting me in.
Yeah.
So then now as an adult in present day, I'm like, you know, I gotta always watch what I say. I always gotta like watch what I wear, and because anything could be used against me, and it fucks me up.
You know, like, I feel like not to make it a race thing.
No, I was hoping you two would go where this is going.
Like not to make it a race thing, but like it's true, dude. Like we gotta be better. Like always. Like my parents, they always told me from like the age of 9, dude. Like elementary school, I gotta work twice as hard as anybody else in my class to get half of what they got.
Yeah.
So if little Susie, went to school and got an A and she didn't have to study nothing or whatever, I had to go home, study for like 2 weeks, flashcards, anything, everything, so that I could get that B.
Yeah. No. The odds are really stacked against us in so many different ways. Yeah, like systematically, with our education system, and
Societal.
Yeah, societal. Like, yo, and it's kind of like even going back to the anxiety question. Like the environments that we in dictate how we move.
Mm-hmm.
My middle school and high school was on the same campus. We had about 300 students. My graduating class was like 45. So it was like a really small campus, but the surrounding area is notoriously known gang neighborhood, the Rolling 60 Crips.
Mm-hmm.
There was dead bodies found in cars outside, right outside of our school, of our high school.
Mm-hmm.
The bank down the street literally got robbed almost every other week, and we will be placed on lockdown, and our parents can't get us until the coast is clear.
Right.
And so then, like, when you're in that environment, who can you trust?
I mean,
Like,
and then on top of that, when it comes to emotion, there can be none. When you get looked at like, oh shit, that place got robbed, and then they look at you and you're like, oh man, that's really sucky for the bank. I don't know who that bank is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anybody about them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I guess it sucks that bank got robbed, but like, what was the circumstances? I can't even ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or else they start looking at me different, like, why is he asking questions? We just told him all the information he needs to know. The bank got robbed. That's a sad story. I'm like, I guess. I mean, like, it's kind of a sad story, but I want to, like, what happened? Like,
Yeah.
But anytime something happens, if I ask the wrong question, ask a weird question, whatever, just so that I can, formulate an opinion in my own mind. Not be handed one and been told, oh, this is how you should feel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that's what happens a lot. They're like, oh, this happened, this is how you should feel about it.
Yeah.
And then you're left there with, or at least for me, I'm left there with tons of questions.
Yeah, and see, even to that point, like, we live in a space where, like, yeah, we don't ask questions. We don't ask, like, why are these individuals robbing the bank?
Right.
We in the hood, like, there ain't no fucking money. We live in a food desert. It's hard to get healthy foods for us to take care of ourselves, for us to take care of our families. And, like, why do you think niggas die every day? Because people are trying to get fucking money in a capitalist society that don't take care of its own. And then...
Right.
And it's so...
You put us all in a neighborhood that you don't put money in, and then you give us the bare basic, and then you're like, oh, but why are they complaining? Why are they going outside of what is socially normal? Mm-hmm. Because you're not supplying us with what's socially normal. You're not supplying us with our act. You're giving us the bare basics as what you think they are. And then being like, well, we gave you everything you need.
Yeah, and see, if we even... So, since we're going there with the, like, politics of Los Angeles, let's start there. So, the 1965 Watts riots, like, Watts was a white neighborhood.
I remember.
Watts, Inglewood, every place that we consider now, like, a hood was once white. Mm-hmm. Because... And then when we revolted and everything, They took all the jobs with them. They didn't like revitalize any neighborhoods. We was on our own, and then now we have to invent the black dollar. Like, okay, how do we circulate this and then compound this for our own communities?
Mm-hmm.
But then, how can we compound when we don't have resources?
Right.
Y'all took the factory jobs with you,
and then want to be mad at the shops on Rodeo for making them money. Like, it blows my mind that people will actually like stand out there and be upset at like barbershops. Though I remember I was out there one day and someone called a noise complaint on the drummers in the park. And I was like, why? Like, nobody
Because they
else.
heard a good beat for the first time in their life, and they're like, I will not stand for this.
or they
Right.
couldn't get into
couldn't clap with everybody else.
This makes me want to have sex and play it as a timeless classic. I can't have this.
Right, and I'm like, is societal wise and politically, I mean, even the police treat us this way. We're a threat.
Yeah.
Like, on sight,
Yeah.
a threat.
Yeah.
And then they basically go there and they ask you questions, but they're not really asking questions. What they're trying to do is catch you in some shit.
And my bad, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you good. And
This
they're like,
conversation.
what they do is they come over, they try to ask you some questions, catch you in some shit. That's what that is. They're not asking you questions to help. They're asking you questions to catch you in some shit and then twist it so that they have a reason to pull you into the police department, pull you into the office, pull you downtown, wherever the fuck you're going.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to be like, well, you know what? The story just doesn't sit up straight. We're going to keep you here overnight. And then
mentally fuck you up.
And then now you're like, I had work, I had this, and now you're spiraling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I have so many thoughts on this, but my whole thing is like, societal wise, is built in a place where I can imagine that a healthy form of anxiety ends up happening to everyone.
Ooh.
I like that point, because anxiety is a natural neurochemical phenomenon, and that's, I feel like the hard line is, because if you're totally without anxiety, that's bad. You'll be.
It's the precursor to your fight or flight.
Yeah.
Right? It's that feeling that you have where just before the decision that, okay, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here, or I'm gonna fight my way through it, it's that feeling. But it's not supposed to last forever. It's only supposed to last until you make your decision. Right?
Yeah.
And then you get out.
And the problem is that when, like what you were saying, Chris, is you're in a living and communal situation where you have this surplus of fight or flight triggering situations that if your body's not triggering fight or flight, it would be a more problematic. But when you're experiencing just so many that are specifically like induced by poverty, capitalism, and then you're forced to, and then you're stuck in a space where you can't escape those, yeah, you are going to become callous, because anger spares you from the feeling of helplessness, because it's that whole I'd rather bite someone than be bitten. And this is one thing that I really get, I caution people when they're saying like, oh, it's neurochemical, like, yes, but it's also a lot of real factors triggering that neurochemistry. And you can't, and if you don't deal with those factors, then it doesn't matter what you're medicating, because you're only numbing out the natural biological response.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, man, so couple things, like when it comes to police, the overseers, because that's like the root of it.
Mm-hmm.
My pops always told me a story of like when my mom was working in Torrance, and at a Walmart, I believe. In Torrance is known as a sundown town, like, and it still is a sundown So do y'all know what a sundown sound is?
Means being home by sundown.
Yeah, you like if you're of color, you have to be home by sundown, or
by the time the lights come on.
Or else police will hunt you down.
Yeah, they come and get you.
Yeah, they're coming for you, and like
in the 80s.
Well, I actually have a story about the police, but I'll save it until after yours.
Yeah, like cause, so, my pops was yanked out of the car by gunpoint by the police, and they was like, "What you doing here?" And he's like, "I'm picking up my wife. She works at this Walmart." And they was like, "I don't believe you." And then so they put him in the car and said, "Take us to the Walmart." Took him to the Walmart. Said, "My wife is right here." And she's like, "What the fuck is going on?" You know. And then like again, we can't go nowhere without like some shit like fucking us up mentally. And even to your point with anxiety, having. There's a healthy thing of anxiety. For me, how I look at that is like morals. Like, am I doing the right thing? And that's where it gets healthy, but then it's unhealthy at the same time. I experience both.
I feel that, like I said, I don't have anxiety. I have depression. But when I think about it, I think that when I think of a healthy form of anxiety, it's like you're second guessing everything, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna go outside today. Am I gonna go outside today? What am I gonna do outside today? How long do I need to be out? Like, I time everything that I'm doing when I leave the house, because I need to know, one, exactly how long I'm gonna be there. Two, who's gonna be there? And three, I need to know ahead of time if there's gonna be a second location, like, because I'm serious about this.
No, I'm with you too. I'm like teetering in that mid to late 20s where I'm like, I would like to be home in time to get the good parking.
I mean, like, it's not even that. I just know that, like, as it starts getting into the evening, police presence gets up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not trying to, like, even on an off chance, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be anywhere near it. And the reason why, and I will never forget this, and I will never not share this information, but the whole point of when the police department was actually created was to return slaves, property, back to the masters.
Yeah.
That was the whole creation of it.
Yeah.
And at no point from that time to this time have they, like, disbanded or like broken away from that. Even now, the protect and serve is to protect property and serve the community, but the community that they're serving isn't the community that they're serving in.
Yeah, that's why, like, Simi Valley, the fucking cops, and
I mean, like, you see
you got to Simi Valley and you're just like, God, they're really into Trump out here.
You see it when they ship homeless out of the area that they were in.
They did that recently. They took a homeless guy from Burbank to Van Nuys, and
you see
Van Nuys did not notice.
Yeah, no, like, you see it when they do that. You see it when they pull in, like, any random black man that fits a description. I mean, like,
yeah.
What is that? What even is that? Because I've seen them pull in description matchers that don't fit shit, and I'm like, that's not even the person.
Holding up a vague photo to America and saying, "Look for him," never goes well.
No, and then it inspires people who already have connotations of race to not be very popular. Racist people in general, to just go out and be like, you. I'm a target you today. I'm gonna follow you into this ice cream shop. I'm gonna wait for you to say something that's a little bit offhand, and then I'm gonna call you out on it, even if I don't want ice cream.
Come on, only cops are allowed to do that.
But it happens, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And like, that's why I'm like, in certain, for just in general, black men with anxiety almost feels like a predisposition.
Yeah, because it's a plethora of different things. Of yeah, of course. Again, as we already said earlier, systematic, social, and then like on an individual level or in a interpersonal level, interacting one on one. Like if you're in an environment where everybody's on edge, then what do? And then you learn some new information. You try to present it to people. They're gonna be like, "What is this?" And they look at you as like a weirdo. Like,
Yeah.
as someone like for myself, I was a crier growing up as a kid. So then, like, I always got like, "Nigga, why you crying a lot?" And
It never makes you cry less.
It never does. It never helps.
Why are you crying or man up is never gonna be like vacuum up the tears and be like,
right.
You're right, Mr. Man.
Right.
and then so then like with all that, and like try to tell the homies like, yo, like crying or like being vulnerable, there's some goodness to it.
Mm-hmm.
And because when you hold it in, the anxiety does ramp up, and because it kind of feeds into this whole mentality of like, I can't trust people. And so like I try to, something that I actually do is do emotional intelligence workshops for the community. Like, okay, what are we feeling right now? How do I identify it? How do we break it down further? And then how do we put this into art? How do we make this constructive? Like, if I'm feeling angry, what am I doing with that anger? Do I feel disgusted? Do I feel upset? Do I feel resentful?
Mm-hmm.
How do we, and then how we put this out into the world to where no one gets hurt? Because, in me and your community, like in our community, the gang mentality, like we're gonna go and like fuck somebody up or some shit, like, because we're mad because no one taught us from the older generation, but then the older generation doesn't even know because they wasn't even getting the tools.
They'll turn around and be like, I've had multiple conversations with the older generation that either flip one or two ways. It depends on who you talk to.
Mm-hmm.
One is, oh no, I wouldn't let that stand, but they won't tell you exactly how they wouldn't let it stand. They just be like, oh no, I wouldn't let that stand. And then you go and talk to the other generation, they'll be like, nah, we gonna fuck them up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, okay, so like what you're teaching me is don't let go of shit.
Yeah.
Don't let go of shit. And physical violence is the answer to getting wronged.
Dads, cops, and the army. Those are the only groups allowed to be physically violent, and it's they get a pass.
But dude, you're right. There is something cathartic in letting go, right? And being in whatever that emotion brings you, whether it's anger, sadness, like you were talking about, like how your anxiety kind of causes you to, when it ramps up, you just stop trusting people. Like people around you, you're like, nope, can't have them around. Like I gotta be on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to and what you're saying real quick about growing up in like high anxiety environments, because when you're a kid and you're still learning your like how to preset your emotions and your baselines, and you're around adults who are super high anxiety, but they will not acknowledge it as other than they're normal or this is who I am, it messes with your perceptions, because then you're like calibrating, like, that's how an adult's supposed to behave? And they're not acknowledging, like, oh, this is me in my mood, but this is different from me as a person.
Right. Like, they never separated as, oh, this is me in this moment in time. Like, come back to me in like 10, 15 minutes and talk to me.
And they're like, oh, why don't they feel comfortable? And it's like, because I don't know which you I'm getting. and because you're not giving me the like, oh, this is a bad time for me right now, because I'll say that to people like, I'm 3 cups of coffees in, I just got bad news, let me talk to you in an hour.
Right. Like, you make the distinction that you're not in that place, but, you know, parents, I think it's one of those, like, I'm sure that someone from an older generation told them that whatever they're going through, they're gonna have to push it aside for their kid, and they're just gonna have to deal with that later, and you know, whatever. And so, like, now you got these parents that are spiraling, you know, and parents, there are parents that are spiraling, and parents, and you know, I can see how that could be a struggle, but like with a little bit of knowledge, with a little bit of like empathy, you could, when the child is old enough, because children have bad days too, you know, it's like having a bad day is not specific to a certain age, you know. So you could be like, turn to your kid and be like, you know what, I'm having a bad moment right now, can you come back in like 15 minutes, or like go send them off, play a video game, play outside, whatever. But also to the other part of the whole anxiety of just being like, you know what, I can't trust people right now. Like, I gotta keep them away. It's like, that's a hard place to be. With depression, when I start spiraling, I don't trust people the same, but the thing is like, well, I shouldn't say that. What I should say is I trust people, but I trust that they're gonna let me down. Right? Like, I trust that the worst outcome will be the outcome. Right?
It's a safety, it's a protection mechanism of preempting for the worst to avoid disappointment and feeling foolish if you trusted someone.
Right. It is basically to keep me from being like, sad things happen, and then be spiraling more. But the thing is, I know now that when I do that, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know?
Yeah, you're setting yourself up.
I'm setting myself up. I'm going to be like, oh, if I go out tonight, the worst of the worst is going to happen. And then, you know, I'll go out, and then I'll have a bad time. It may not be the worst of the worst of what I imagined it to be. But it's still not a good time because I'm waiting for my prediction to come true. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely hear what you mean. And even to like quickly go back a little bit of like the older generation and like how things even like seep down. My pops, in 2018, my granny was in the room. My 2 aunties was 2 of my aunties was there. And I don't remember if my mom was there, but he for the first time said, when I was 12 years old, a man put a knife to my throat over a bag of candy. Didn't tell anybody until 2018. He was 12 years old.
God, that balloon had been filling full of air for decades.
And then like decades. And then like even up until like, you know, his unfortunate passing, we kept saying, Dad, you got anxiety. I don't have anxiety. You got anxiety. I don't have it. And it's just like, and he always be checking the fucking Citizen app shit.
People under
you got anxiety. I don't have it.
Hey, don't go to that corner. Like,
you know how it is. People under 35 are too sensitive, and people over 45 are perfectly fine. And I have more questions for you, Chris. Like, before you were like formally diagnosed, did you know something was like off? Like, the software's a little different.
Oh yeah.
You're just
because like people always told me I'm always harsh on myself. You're always harsh on yourself. Like, why are you always so nitpicky about the details? And it's just like, nigga, I just am. Like, and I really noticed something was off when like I was like a people pleaser too. Like I was a hardcore people pleaser because I wanted people to like me because I always thought that people didn't like me, and that was part of that played into my anxiety.
And you overextend,
and then snowball.
Right.
Well, yeah. And that's a weird way where it's like learning that selfishness can sometimes be self-care.
You know, you got me thinking I got anxiety. I'm like, but...
Oh, we'll get in. I have 2,000 years of anxiety definitions.
Because it's like one of those things you're too hard on yourself. You nitpick. And it's like, okay, but like if I don't, someone else will.
And you always try to beat them to the punch, so then no one won't say shit, and then you can be like, "See, but I took ownership of it.
Right.
You can't say anything about that." Yep.
Like, have you ever had this where the thing you were worried about people noticing or being super anxious about, no one noticed, and like, "Oh, that I didn't even."
Yep.
And then you're just like, you feel like a donkey because you spent hours sweating and panicking, and they're like.
Right, it like where they hit the thing that you hadn't worked on yet.
You didn't notice my inflection point on verse 8. What the fuck was I writing this song for?
Right, when you're hard on yourself, they tell you, oh man, it's not that bad. Like you did great. You're fantastic, dude. We love you. Like don't do that. And then you're like, okay, and then it lulls you.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, oh, they accept me how I am. I'm a come as myself, you know? Mm-hmm. And then you show up and then they're like, hey, but could you dial this back though? Like, yeah. And you're just like, but yesterday you told me I was fantastic.
But then now,
that I was a great person, that you loved having me around. And I was doing all that work. And then you told I felt comfortable coming as myself. Tell me that I gotta put in work. So which one is it? Mm-hmm. Right? That's what gets me. I'm like, that's what would trigger anxiety in me, is showing up one day with feeling like that I'm not my best, so I'm putting in extra work to try to get to my best, right?
Yeah. And I think, like, honestly, this is just my personal opinion. Like, I know you said like you feel like you don't have anxiety, or like, and I'm not trying to invalidate that at all. No. I think like everyone has some form of it. It's just a degree of like severe, mild, and like. Because like when it comes down to anxiety, I think it's just all just worrying about something, but to the degree of like, is it unhealthy? Does it prevent us from doing the things that we need to do? Prime example, and it kind of goes into like what you were saying earlier. A couple days ago, I was so wrapped up in my anxiety of like someone after me. I stayed in bed till 3 p.m. I did not get out of bed till 3 in the afternoon. Everybody, if you truly know me, like, I love getting up early at like 6:30, 7 a.m. in the morning, take my ass to the gym, go to the gym for a couple hours, walk around in my neighborhood. But then, like, when those episodes hit, they fucking hit.
Dude, like, I feel you. And how you describe that reminded me of this punk song by the Flatliners called Sleep Your Life Away. Mm-hmm. And it's just, the whole song is about just not having it, and the singer's asking the listener, hey, sleep your life away with me. It just, but the whole song's racing with speed, even to like contrast that, oh, you're in bed, but your mind is going a million miles an hour, and to paint like the contrast of like, everyone should have a little bit of anxiety. If you don't, you legitimately need more help than the people with anxiety. But in like my case, where like I had panic attacks when I was 6, where it's like I was incapacitated as a person for like a week sometimes, and before I like managed it, and before I was like medicated, there were days where it's like, oh, something triggered me, and I still deal with a lot of like as much as I rationalize it, I still have physical symptoms of anxiety that are gonna maybe hang around forever, or I notice them dampening down at times, but like my shoulders tense up where it's like I have to be cognizant because I'll be out having a good time and then my shoulders are like a car jack rising up into my body.
I've had moments like that, but I want to ask you a question.
As honest.
I look. I'm gonna bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
As black men,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel that we as a people
Mm-hmm.
have more anxiety than, say, your average white man?
Fuck yeah, nigga, we got
Yo,
nigga, we got, bro. Okay, so like, like here's the thing, like, there's when we put the intersectionalities at play, the people that have the worst is the black trans women. Period. Fucking period. Yeah, like.
Just talk about a hand to get at where we're at in the world.
That I mean, like I didn't think you could get lower than the black woman, but black trans people.
Like you got so many systems of oppression coming at you,
and every group you identify as still has some friction with you because
of one reason or another.
Yeah, and it's.
And then
and I bring up that because I'm queer and pansexual, so like. I know how it is being black and queer in the LGBTQ plus community, because now not only you gotta watch out for society, you gotta watch out for your own people, because they've been brought up in a system of like Christianity is law, and then they being brainwashed by, again, rooted back in the slave days, what their God was,
right?
And misinterpreting the Bible to manipulate our people. So then with that and that mentality being carried into today, now we gotta watch out for ignorant motherfuckers, and so yeah, like so the anxiety, like point blank period, black people across the board has it the fucking worst, but no one has it worse than the black trans woman.
Yeah.
And this is a topic for another discussion, but it's a conversation I want to have of the theological colonization, because I ran into this like with my own of like, I was raised Catholic, and then I learned the Catholics kind of killed off my pagan ancestors, and just that I get the religion being a source of community and being like, you can organize under the guise of religion, but then also understanding the role Christian colonization in Africa played, and that a lot of the struggles and diasporas that people across the world deal with is that there were very specific models to cultural. I noticed this where I was like, there's things within like Irish communities that only our pagan religion addressed that Christianity never did. And when I was studying like other cultures' religions, I'm like, there's the blueprints for your mental health treatment in these older, like, polytheistic animist faiths. Whereas Christianity is just this cookie cutter that does not fit every social dynamic.
Here's where I think it comes into play. I think I don't have facts or nothing to back any of this up. This is just my opinion. Christianity, church, was one of the first communities that black people really had, right? If you think about it.
Are we talking about
back in
American history or
American
beyond?
history?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, and that's what I mentioned.
In American history,
it was phenomenal for organizing.
Right. Yeah. In American history, it was one of the first communities that you could actually fully be a part of. So, and that was still with prejudice, and I think that we hold on to that now because it's one of the few communities that's held out this long in America. But the thing is, we are also one of the only races that still live in the land of their oppressor.
Oof.
Right? Like
Damn,
we are
not thinking that.
we are still here, generations of us after slavery, and that if you look at the history of most other countries that have oppressed people, most of them leave
Yeah.
in mass. Now you could have the debate that, you know, we tried to create Haiti, but then look at that. I mean, that had no.
Do not get me started on. Please
That-
do not get me started on Haiti. This is
Yeah, no, zero support, zero services of any kind. They just dropped. It was almost like we just got dropped there, and they said make it work.
Well, when the
And-
Western economic world gang rapes your region.
And then we're living in, like, every law. You could look at it and be like, oh yeah, that, I guess that kind of makes sense. I guess that should be there. But if you look at it deeper, it's every law is built there to systematically still oppress in one way or another generations of black people.
Mm-hmm.
They have laws now that if you don't have a license in some states, you can't vote. Which is insane to me, because there are old black people that still got some life with them who don't have a license, who now can't vote. All of their votes gone. Right? Young black people who just getting there, you know, may not be in the position to have a car and a license. Their vote don't matter anymore now. Like, that's just one law. Just one. There are plentiful that stop us from being able to be as successful as we want to be.
Yeah.
Right? And bringing it back to anxiety, you're right. In my opinion, black people have way more to be anxious about. Every time you go outside, it's a reason to be a little bit fearful of what may happen before you get back home.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's disheartening, to say the least. I don't even know how to put words to
No,
it.
I think you are absolutely right, and I think it's your guys' and your community's anxiety is more justified. And you have a surplus of factors all the time, whereas I feel like the anxiety in the white community, like, it's mostly economic or just familial trauma. It's never like we're worried about the cops, because years of punk rock degeneracy taught me the depth of racist cops, but also where it's like, I should be dead or in jail by so many scenarios and accounts. Like, that is not lost on me, and I'm very, like, I use my privilege at protests for that reason, but also there's times where I'm like, for fuck's sake, like, you could at least try to hold me to remotely the same bar. But there was also, like, there's a reason a lot of shitty behavior gets perpetuated in white communities, because we're getting the fuck away with it all the time.
Dude, no, go ahead.
Cause like it's because when you said, like, it's always something to be, like, and I'm paraphrasing, like, fearful of when you step outside.
Mm-hmm.
I never been out of the country until last fall, and that was for, like, my touring, like, as a rap artist.
How was that?
That was so wild, because I went to Zurich, Switzerland to open up for Westside Boogie, Eminem's artist.
Yeah.
And and also Mayhem Lauren too.
Oh,
And
nice.
so I'm in this brand new environment, and of course I'm, like, gonna be on edge, like, I don't know where to go. I don't know if there's gangs out here. I don't know what the police is like. I don't know shit.
Right.
The only thing in my head is, like, I'm out of America. finally, like, I'm out of this hellhole. Like, I needed to see something beyond here. And when I was with the locals and like the promoter, like, fantastic fucking people. Shout out to Johnny IV and Hip Hop Zoo. When I was with them and I was like looking around, they was like, "Yo, what's up with you?" And I'm like, watching out for danger. And they was like, "Oh, nothing ever happens here." No, like, and I'm like, "Excuse me, what?" Yeah, like, nothing really ever happens here. Like, the police don't do shit. Like, you can even smoke weed with the police. I'm like, huh? Like, what?
This new information does not click.
I like that you bring that up, because that's what James Baldwin, who I quoted at the beginning of this, that's why he chose to stay in Europe, because he's like, no one's trying to lynch me here. It's fucking great. And he's like, I can just have intellectual discussions and get coffee, and the cops do not give a shit that I'm hanging out in these...
No, the thing is, he's not the only one. Like, there's a plethora of black artists that go and tour almost, if not specifically, but exclusively in Europe because of the social economics of America.
But then here's the other
no more 17-year-olds with machine guns.
Right.
Here's the flip side of that coin. Mm-hmm. So when I was out there in Switzerland, in Zurich, somehow, some way, I came back with a whole girlfriend. Somehow. And then, but like, the thing is that we dated for like 3 or 4 months, and towards the end, or a little after, like, we broke up, I realized, don't know shit about being black. Like, and like, of course, that's to be expected, right?
Samuel Jackson.
But like, the conditions of being a black American, and then when I try to have these conversations, it's kind of like it's kind of falling deaf ears.
Yeah, and
it's foreign.
Yeah, and that's why, like, Samuel Jackson was icing out the dude who played Fred Hampton, because he was like, you don't, and I was like, because I thought he did a phenomenal job as Fred Hampton, but I get where Samuel Jackson's coming from.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, honestly, being a black American, it's a cultural shift. It's not something that's seen in any other country. Not really. This is specific to us. Like, this is specific to America.
Yeah.
And the type of head swivel you gotta stay on, and to make it the day, you know, to make it the week, the month, the year. Mm-hmm. It's constant. It's constant. And then to try to explain this to someone who that otherwise has no idea on how, not just how to accept that information, but now live in that information, live in that truth. It's hard. It's
too
hard.
And I'm fascinated by, like, how American hip hop is the standard, yet it's a byproduct of the fucking worst conditions humans can put each other through, and yet people are like, oh, we love the music, but it's like, you ever wonder that I came from the same town that wrote "Fuck the Police"?
Exactly my point.
That banger did not come from having good times.
Right.
Because, like, and this is something, like, because when we was getting to know each other, I told her, like, all right, like, I'm from, like, a pretty wild place, because she never been to America, but she travels all around. Okay. Well, no, she never been to LA specifically. She's been to New York.
LA's a different.
Yeah, LA's a different beast. And, like, she wanted to come in December. I said, no.
You do not show up in the winter.
No. This motherfucker. LA's already Gotham City. It's Gotham City times 100 in the winter. For whatever fucking reason.
It's Gotham City, like, with the heater on.
Right. I'm like.
And so then, so here's the story. It was about 2 months into being in a relationship, and I had a really bad experience in East Hollywood where a guy was chasing me and like out of nowhere just saying, "I'm gonna fucking kill you," and I'm like, "What the fuck?" And like I'm running down the street and shit. Called my homie met me at a corner, and then we had to like get down with dude. And so when I told her that, she was terrified, and I'm like, "Well, this is LA, unfortunately. Like things like this do happen." And what I think part of what occurred as to what contributed to our breakup is those cultural differences of anxiety, because like they don't have to deal with the shit that we deal with out here, and especially being a Black American, she is a white Swiss German woman, and like
I mean,
white people in LA would not get what you're talking about.
I mean,
but it's an even different.
Yeah, and that's the point I'm making of like.
I mean, outside of the country, it's a giant cultural shift. I would have a hard time believing that anybody that would, one, accept this information and then two, choose to live in it. Like, have their free choice be like, oh no, I would I mean, like, you see it now. They want, white people want all the cool shit that we got. They want our music, they want our look, they want our ass, they want our lips, they want everything that we got,
and they look horrifying trying to achieve.
They want our hair, they want everything that we got. They want us, but they don't want to live as us. They want everything that's good out of the Black community without any of the work to be in the Black community.
And to transition real quick, I got a question for you, because, and maybe you could chime in, because it deals with with my experience of dating a white woman from that lives in a foreign country, and me getting anxiety over like, do she understand what I'm going through? The anxiety of interracial relationships. Go, both of you.
Most of my relationships are interracial. So
what's y'all experience?
I'll let Shane answer first since he said something first, and then I'll give my answer as to why I have a Black fiance. So go ahead, Shane. So, you know,
it's been an evolution of like, it was never like consciously dating people outside of race, despite shitty people I knew in middle school saying that. It was just who I vibed with. And most of the white people in the suburb I grew up in, I don't know, we didn't vibe. I was weird and a little bit traumatized from my childhood, but when I was like doing poetry or even before poetry, it was just I vibed with people who looked different than me, who had different backgrounds, and that was always the fucking case. And and as far as like relationships, it's just like, hey, what specifically do you identify as? Like Chicana, Latina, what? I'm trying to gauge, because I understand the significance of that. Like, I get upset if people refer to me as like English or Nordic, and I'm like,
right,
because I'm aware of my own ancestors' history and I take pride in that. But it's just gauging the terminology that they're comfortable with. That's all. It's not that it's like, hey, don't call me Sean or English. And then also like breaking down that I'm never going to be as comfortable in the sun as you are. That's never gonna happen. I'm gonna be a little more sweaty and sunscreeny. This is just, And from there, it was just, I'm intrigued by other cultures and their backgrounds, and also I think it was a bit of like me having been traumatized as a child. I vibed with people who had experienced adversity and it like had that wherewithal, that wit, and that maturity. Whereas like they could see that I was a little bit on edge, but it wasn't a deal breaker for them. Whereas like people in my mostly white suburb were just like, why aren't you relaxed?
Right.
We're fine.
Right. So I've dated a few different cultures. Everybody has a form of anxiety. I will admit that. Everybody has a form of anxiety. Every culture has a reason of why they're just a little bit anxious about something, right? In my opinion, it usually goes. It usually goes.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah,
it usually goes.
Uh-huh.
White people at the top. Their anxiety level, literally almost nothing. Literally almost nothing.
What are you talking about? We're fine.
They'll invite me to a bowling alley at 10 p.m.
Walking their fucking dog in the neighborhood. That
Right.
fucking kills me, man.
Right, walk
Like,
their dog in and then complain that they don't have
a Starbucks around the corner.
right. Complain they ain't got Starbucks. Complain that they didn't put out a water bowl for their dog. They knew they was coming. Like that's that's up there. It's up there. And then
You see why I have my frustrations with my community.
hey man, I'm just telling you what I've seen. I'm just telling you.
No, and I'm not saying no to any of this because it's all.
It's
Studio City.
and then under that, I would say it's kind of a mix with Latina and Chinese. Like Latina think that they're better than you, but they at home they'll be like,
He's the one saying this stuff, not.
I didn't say
Yeah,
shit.
just-
okay.
Shit.
Hold on.
Yeah.
No,
Hold
I
on.
just-
Everybody just
I don't want the
stop.
camera to be like solo shot at me and be like.
Okay, well, let me be a little bit more specific.
Okay.
The one that I dated thought she was better than me.
That's the kind of stuff you put into
And-
Reddit, and then you're like, I can't go on Reddit for a week.
Right.
They're
I
mad at
can't
me.
see the reply on this. She thought she was better than me, but she was I would argue that she was about as anxious about certain things as I was, right? But not about the same things. It would be like we were both anxious about the police, but she wasn't like paying attention to where they were. It was more of like she just like once they got in view then she'd worry. But I'm like, nah, I need to know like I need to be in a neighborhood where I know how they patrol.
Like, is that the same squad car from an hour ago, or are those some?
Right? Is that the
different
same?
things?
Is that the same number on that vehicle that we passed a block back, or is that a new vehicle?
You
What's
make
the
a
number on that?
Dude,
What's
you
the
make a
number
great
on that?
hardcore leftist with this level of cop paranoia.
I mean, it's real though. It's real though. Like you just gotta memorize the last 3. You don't need the whole one.
I'm gonna take note of that and be like,
look, I'm just from tip to tip. I'm giving you a freebie. Just memorize the last 3. That way you're not sitting there trying to memorize. Was that the whole number?
Yeah.
But being with Kay, she gets it. Like she understands me, like why I make the decisions that I make, and when it comes to going outside, where we're going, why we're going, how long we're gonna be there, and she'll even help. She'll help and be like, you know what, we don't have to be there that long. We can cut out early, and she helps me in a way where I don't feel so anxious when I go outside, as long as I'm with her, because she gets it.
yeah, she's
But
validating you.
Right. She gets why I'm the way that I am when I'm outside. My other relationships did not.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get at. I feel that because, black women are more anxious than us. I mean, they have they have more reasons to be wary of people than we do. I mean, like it happened. Okay, remember when they made that twerk movie with those kids on Netflix?
Oh yeah.
Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
It was like it was
like Nickelodeon in the 90s.
Yeah, it was a dance studio movie where these basically minority children were in there, and they were like basically hypersexualizing them by teaching them how to twerk.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing is, way before that movie, we have been hypersexualizing young black women for generations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That's been something that they have been fighting and trying to protect themselves from for a very long time before Netflix made a movie.
Yeah, I mean, like,
and yeah, so when I was like, okay, after I had dated around for a little bit, I was like, no, I need a black woman. She's gonna be the only one that gets me the way that I know I need.
Yeah.
Right? And she does. And Kay's not the only black woman that I've been with. She's the one that, she gets me culturally and she gets me personally.
Yeah.
But most black women have always gotten me culturally. They always seem to kind of understand the plight of being black and in America.
Yeah. And I agree with you. Like, yeah, black women, like, have it worse than black men. But at the same time, and I'm not saying this, like, it tempted to invalidate or any of that sort. Black men have been fetishized as well. Because there's also the thing of, like, yeah, everybody wants a black man until it's time to actually nurture and care for a black man. Yeah. Recently, I lost a best friend when, like, one of the reasons was me having, like, a whole mental breakdown about losing my father. And, like, me, like, letting out that rage. Apparently, it scared them. And they're not black. Ooh. And it's just like, but then they want to be with black men.
You see,
so it's just like,
It's, they like the image, Mm-hmm. I think that's it. I think
they don't have to justify how progressive they are. It's like guys who say they have a wife and daughter, they're usually the ones harassing women.
It's kind of like saying that I have a black friend.
Yeah, because
essentially it's that, but the thing is, it's like you said, when it comes to nurturing a black man, because it's hard to say in a moment, I'm not all together right now, right?
Yeah.
And it's something about being with the right partner that they get that. They can see it, and they're like, okay, they're not all together right now. I need to, and I mean, of course, there's communication, there's learning that person, there's, just tons of things that you can do to kind of inspire this moment in your own personal life, but I find it easier when there is a cultural tie to one another.
So then with that, I'm going to ask you a hard question, and it's an age-old question. Do we keep it in the culture, or... Yeah. Because, like, because everything you literally said, because, in my time, And I think when me and you first met, I never really dated. Like, not like that. I remember you, and
We were both on our, and we kind of still are on our artist hustle stuff.
Yeah.
And go on.
But like in 2022, I remember like, you and like someone else was just like, you never had a girlfriend before? I'm like, no, I never had a girlfriend before. And like, and at that time, I dated like a plethora of different like folks, and I only dated like one black woman, and it was just how just things were like in the environments that I was in. But yeah, I definitely noticed like when it came to talking about like black issues or like them understanding black issues, it just kind of fell on deaf ears. Like one of them lived in like an affluent neighborhood, and then it was just like, I'm kind of scared of you walking around at night, and I'm like, girl, I could get killed walking down the street in the daytime. Yeah, exactly. Like this ain't shit. Like that. This is just how it's gonna be. Like, and so then like that's why I asked like the age old question. Like, should we only date our own? Because like it doesn't seem like sometimes shit just doesn't translate.
It's that
I would love to not be confined to dating white people.
I you know
like,
what? It's
some of y'all are cool, but just
it's hard. That's a hard question.
Yeah.
I look. You look at me. I kept it within because I love my fiance. She's the best woman I have ever met.
And congratulations, sir.
Oh, Kay is awesome. She makes me laugh, which you know how hard that is.
She's amazing. She's amazing. It's hard for me to imagine her not black. You know, because it's like
imagine her Scottish. That would be fun.
Because it's like, okay, I love her on a personal level, right? Imagine her Scottish. I love Kay on a personal level. But I will not lie. The fact that she is black is part of the cultural tie that I have to her and that I love about us. So would I still be as in love with her if she wasn't black? Which is hard for me to say because I'm like, I haven't ever loved any non-black person as much as I love her. But then again, I haven't loved any other black person as much as I love her either. But the thing is, I can hang around my other black ex-partners in my mind the way that I could hang around other black people. But I can't hang around other white people, other white exes, the same way that I would my black exes. Like our interactions completely different. Like I remember Kay and some of my other black exes, like they were cool with chilling out at home. You know,
right?
Like, we don't have to go nowhere. Right, especially like when we're in San Bernardino or whatever.
Don't like that.
And I'm like,
what?
And I'm like, okay, we
I'm
just
suicidal, but come on.
Like we cool right here. Like the fact that we are just in each other's presence and alive is enough right now. But like, I don't know what it is, but some of my other exes, like they needed to do something. They needed to be outside. And when I would try to explain to them like, oh, you know what is, you know, that area, that's a no-go. Like, we ain't going there. Find someone on the other side of town. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that ain't the only bowling alley. That ain't the only movie theater. Find a different one.
Yeah, and
but the thing is, they like have a fit, you know, about it. You know, like it would, instead of it being like, oh, there's a reason why, you know, like he said, not this place. It would be like, well, why not? Why can't we go there? Da 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 da. I want to go there. I've gone there before. I really like the seats. Well, like whatever the reason for why it has to be that one. And I'm like, you're not listening. You're not hearing me. You're not seeing what I'm seeing.
And then even on top of that, to add to that, while it's also again like environment issue of police and racist, also the economic of it. Like, why the fuck would we go to a movie theater where tickets is $30 when we live next to a movie theater that's like fucking $12 for a ticket? And like, you want to be all bougie and fancy and all that shit. And then
I appreciate that because I've had women I was talking to, being friendly with, where it's like, I know they wanted to go as friends, but they're like, they would recommend a very expensive restaurant. Yeah. And I'm just like, please just tell me this is a you're that into me thing. And because I was like, you're insane if you're expecting me on for a friendly lunch to go to this
like high $50
Musso and whatever's. And it's just, and that's another thing, like, because I'm working class, so I've hung out with other white people who are more affluent, and they don't get my like, oh, I don't want to pay $30 to $40 for your meditation thing because, you know, I got rent and a weed habit that keeps me sane. Like, and I ran into that like economic stuff mostly with like white homies and white people in my community because they were all a little bit better off than me.
Well,
and it was just
daddy money. Here's I'm gonna end my answer like this. If you have the patience and the love for someone, and they have patience and love for you, then it should be fine. You should be able to have the conversation and they stand at a place of understanding for you. Yeah. But you're gonna need patience.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna need patience because, like I said earlier, the Black American lifestyle is not anyone's choice. It's not someone that you wake up and you have to live in it. We didn't get a choice that, you know, life was like this. But when that's the other thing, like if you're a partner of a black partner, you have to be understanding that this is your life now too. This is not something where you get to haphazardly put us in a place of having to decide, okay, I can either stay with you or protect myself.
Ooh.
Right? And that's what I felt the most outside of black relationships. That choice comes inevitably.
And also, like, I ain't gonna front with you, like, hey, yo, baby girl, baby boy, I got EBT. Don't come over here thinking that you gonna get a free ride or some shit. I'm broke.
The AMPTP is periodically starving me and my workforce. So I got a few more questions for Chris. We'll get his timeline.
Yes. Go ahead.
Chris, when did you first start singing and rapping?
Oh shit. Okay, because I started doing spoken word in December 2009, and I was part of a music group called Shadows of Society, and then we made a bigger group called Mutant Academy, a playoff of like
SOS, Shadows of Society. That sounds cool.
Yeah, and like first we was a 7-man group, and then we grew to 12, and then we grew to 15. We was like a West Coast Wu-Tang, like in like like the early 2010s and shit. And then what's funny is we had some funny stories with like Kendrick Lamar and Doja Cat. My story with Kendrick was this is when he was like bubbling. I think like Overly Dedicated came out, and we was like, yo, we should send him a beat. And he was like, yeah, we'll send him a beat. So we emailed Top Dog, hey yo Top, we got this beat, and he was like, hey, send it through. We got the email. We didn't look at it till like way later though, and then we missed the cut.
No.
Oh fuck no!
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, And then the shit with Doja Cat was 2014, 2015.
Oh shit.
This was funny as shit. And just looking back at the title of the show, it's like, why the fuck did we do this shit? It's this thing called the Big Dirty Function.
It sounds like a funk contemplation album.
Yeah, it was called the Big Dirty Function, bro. Like it was our collective, Mutant Academy, and like this other collective. They was some wild motherfuckers. Like we was just wilding at that time. Like the other collective's name was called FBGT. No, FBG. Which stands for fuck bitches get tacos. Yeah, FBGT. I was like, yeah, y'all. It's some wild. Funny. It's some wild shit.
So, when was your first time on stage?
My first time on stage. Oh shit, this is funny as shit. Yeah, high school, like 2008 or 2008. Oh fuck. So alright. No one. I mean, I don't really talk about it much. Before I became a poet, because my order was like I was a poet and then I became a rapper way later. I've only been rapping for like the past 3-4 years. Okay. Rapping is very new to me. But I was a comedian and I was yeah. Yeah, like no bullshit. I know that was the craziest joke, right? But like, yeah,
I didn't peg you as that much of an asshole. Like,
no, yeah, I was actually an asshole. That's why I stopped doing like comedy. Cause I was a huge asshole to my dad. So
it's kind of a requirement for getting into comedy.
I mean.
I felt really bad, but like, so to answer your question, the first time I was on stage was 2008. Mm-hmm. I was in the musical Copacabana.
Ooh,
Barry Manilow. My high school was putting it on, and I was part of the like chorus, and I was playing a supporting character role. I think Mr. Bill or Brewer, something like it started with a B. I was like a talent agent.
Okay.
For the main character. And and then after that I got into comedy for like 6 months. That's how long I was in it. And I performed at the Hollywood Improv too.
Nice. Like for their audition, or like was it like a showcase thing? Because I've been in on at the Improv, and that is a dedicated brigade of assholes.
Yeah. it was some kind of program that I was part of, and like where like you complete this program.
Oh, it was like
the shit.
Like, and then they let you do a thing.
Yeah, and they kind of put you on. And
okay, so it's good. This was a much different crowd than the like Tuesday night auditions I'm thinking of.
Okay. But I don't know if y'all know this guy, but like sometimes I mention his name in like circles and shit. They was like, "What? You used to roll with that guy?" But the same person that was doing that stuff with, his name, he goes by Shofu now, but his old name was Shofu the Beatdown, like a video game commentary. You know him?
I know. I know a little bit of him. I've seen like a video. Like someone showed me a video of him. I can't remember who did, but I saw his stuff on YouTube. He's cool. Yeah, I like him.
Funniest shit in person, like always, just the brightest light in the fucking room. But like, yeah. So again, 2008.
That's interesting because I came into like, for me it was like poetry and music were kind of at the same time, but I went music a little heavier and then poetry, and then music again, and then comedy took over everything, and it was just like, oh, this is where I get the most out of my natural expression. As much as I love music, like my flow was not, like lyrically just was not remotely in the same camp as how you can transcribe your feelings. Like I'm more confident doing a half-baked comedy set than I am performing a song I spent 2 years writing and perfecting.
Nice.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think I actually started hitting, like, I did like school stuff, right? But like, if we were going to talk about like my actual career as a musician, I don't think I started actually doing anything until about 2013, 2014. And then on top of that, like, nobody was really like showing up. Like, not really. Not the way that I wanted or expected them to. Which really sucked. But I mean, also I was black in an all white neighborhood, so you know, a black harmonica player wasn't really what they were like really like amped to see. They were
you fucking play your ass off. Like,
you're a
when I first saw you,
player.
Damn, that boy can play that harmonica.
I am very good at it.
Yeah.
Dude, I haven't played in almost a little bit under a year now.
That's why I don't play video games.
Hey man, don't blame the video game. The video game didn't do nothing.
I'm just defending why I don't play with you.
But even that though, like, poetry. I haven't written a poem in 2 years. And that was like the actual start of my creative journey. To me, I consider it. Acting, I just written a musical, but that was like a byproduct of a double album that I've written, like, as a rap artist.
Right.
Because I always wanted to create a play that mirrors the album, but make it into an actual thing, you know?
Right.
So, like, it comes and goes, like,
you know.
Yeah, like, pick it up, yeah.
I think me and Shane were talking about it the other day, where I was expressing like how long it's been since I've done anything like super creative, and I think we came to the conclusion that I was just too content.
Yeah,
in life for me to feel inspired to say anything meaningful, because like I could hop on a computer and I could like shit out a beat, or I could like hop on my
Shit out a beat, that just sounded crazy.
Like, dude, I could do it, dude.
Please, like, have whatever upsets your stomach and then sample it, and then don't tell people part of the beat is a bowel movement.
Right. I'm
You're like, God, this beat's the shit. It's like, you don't say.
It really is. Like, I could do that, or I could like pick up my harmonica and I could do like a solo or whatever. But like, I don't know, man. I've gotten really into drawing. It's actually helped my depression.
I feel you on the ditching all of your other like stuff that you can actually make money doing for visual art, because we had my little art kickback where we all just drew, and it was so fun seeing a bunch of performers do visual art. And that's what that skateboard you see was. We're gonna add to it. Just we had to do this thing, but with the like visual component of expressing, but also your contentment, like you got your home life that you're building, whereas for me it's a lot of what drives me is like both me trying to understand the things that brought me to my addiction and the following sobriety, but then also just, and I was saying this to you the last time we were talking, it's like I'm not where I want to be, and I got that hunger and that drive, and it's I'm doing all that I'm doing because I'm not content. And as much as I want to be in a relationship, when I see stuff happening in the world, and this is what sabotaged other relationships of, the activist in me is not good at seeing injustice or seeing issues that are not being properly talked about and then keeping my mouth shut. Hence this show, and hence me protesting. Like yesterday I was out at a rally for Palestine outside the Boeing and Raytheon offices, just because I was like, oh, I feel powerless, I'm angry, let me, like, and I ended up missing another person's show that I really wanted to go to, but I was like, I gotta come out and support. I can't
do nothing.
Yes, yeah. And that is another thing I'm constantly learning to juggle, and also just maybe I gotta get somewhere in my career or in my artistry or in myself to be content to hold space for someone else, because I see that I have this thing as an artist and an activist, and I see it with you and your art too, like, you're wondering what's next. You're not content just sitting on the couch, going to see a homie's show, and then you not giving it your 110% at your own project. And this segues into my next question of, like, one of the side effects of anxiety is difficulty socializing. Has performing and being on stage helped you connect with people beyond the friction of your anxiety?
No, because people see like a persona on stage. Like they feel that because I'm vulnerable in my work and I share certain stories, keywords, certain stories. They think that like I'm so vulnerable, but then off stage, I'm Chris. Like, of course, like this is entertainment. Like let's get that clear. It's entertainment. I'm going to perform and put on a show for you to enjoy it, but I want you to think about what I'm presenting to you. And I'm just gonna get up there and do whatever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? I want you to think. That's why like I take a lot of time in crafting my albums. Like my first album is about science fiction and religion and trauma, those intersectionalities. Second album, meditation. Third album, I specifically made a bilingual album, English and Swiss German, for the homies out here that can't travel to Switzerland because of, resources. Right. So when you're listening to it, like you're getting a whole experience. Like, holy shit, I never knew this existed. I never knew Swiss German was a fucking language until I went out there.
Please do not get me started on the linguistics of Europe. Oh boy,
But see, that's the thing. Like experiencing different things and like different perspectives and whatnot, and different stories. So, people, the stories that I just shared with y'all earlier, like. I realized that I never really like shared that with anybody, like getting jumped while homeless or being sexually assaulted by a woman while being homeless. And then that affecting my anxiety when it comes to dating and being intimate with, specifically with women, honestly. Like, so to bring it all back to the question, like, I really feel like people don't know me, and at times I feel like people don't really try to get to know me because they think what's on stage is what's reality. And then that builds resentment within me because like none of y'all motherfuckers don't call, like these motherfuckers don't call my phone. I'm easy to access. I don't post like, hey, I'm in downtown LA. Right. Of course I don't do that shit because I'm paranoid all the fucking time. But you can message me and be like, yo, what's up? Like, I want to get to know. All right, cool. What do you want to know? Like, I'm going to tell you, I have nothing to hide.
Right.
But nobody actually does that.
Nope.
Yeah, and it's a defense mechanism as like an artist, or it's like being strategically perceived vulnerable. And I'm there's plenty of stuff that I have resolved and come to terms with that I'm happy to talk about on stage, but there's other stuff I haven't. And I always admired like the comedians, like Norm Macdonald had cancer for 9 years, and he didn't tell anyone because he's like, yeah, but it'll get in the way of my jokes.
That's funny.
And just that whole like not wanting to be overshadowed by the thing you wish you didn't have to deal with.
Right.
And sharing the stories you are comfortable, because I've seen that with a lot of like coming up through the poetry scene in high school, where they're like, there is a pressure to do good in slams and do the most triggering piece, but then it's just like that person probably shouldn't have talked about that in front of a theater full of people when they're still coming to terms with it themselves. And just like it's like showing a scar but without a purpose. And it took me a long time as an artist, and I try to help other artists with that. I'm like, you don't have to do the thing that hurts you the most on stage, because, and this is one thing like that comedy kind of helped me, is like poetry got me in the habit of talking about the heaviest stuff for the audience, and it's just like I just kind of want to go out and see people, but if I have to perform this heavy triggering thing to be involved in the space, then whereas with at least with a joke, it's like I'm not letting everyone know about my problems, and I get that some anonymity to deal with them and to pretend like I'm all right for the evening.
But even showing your scars with a purpose.
So, being that my form of musicianship doesn't actually have me speak much. For you two, how do you know that you're showing scars with a purpose, or saying, "Look at this wound; it's going to be a really good scar later"?
Ooh, I guess for me it's just, am I gonna be weirded out or still want to talk about this when I'm off stage? Because with jokes and with like addiction and stuff like that, I'm very open about it because I want to help other people, but also just that it's something I've come to terms with and have found resolve. And there's other things that not so much, where it's just there are things I'm dealing with that I wish I wasn't.
Right.
And if I can keep the focus on the stuff I have overcome, the stuff I have made peace with, then I get that feeling like accomplishment and I'm doing something. And it's playing more into the persona, the part of me that has it figured out, the Shane. Whereas the Shanen is smoking in the alleyway with his head in his hands,
Right.
thinking about a punk song that is somehow still lingering around in my head and keeping me warm since high school. And it's like when I'm hanging out with people, I'm gonna play you the funky, cool stuff I found in record stores, not the emo punk rock stuff I listen to when I'm alone, because it's not as like cool rhythmically, or as far as like I'd rather play someone Alton Ellis and Tommy Guerrero rather than the Thrice album I listen to in full, because it's emo and punk rock and hardcore and it sounds perfect to me, but I can't expect anyone else to get a fraction of what I get out of that album.
Right.
And whereas like it comes down to, am I happy talking about it afterward? Because I have made that mistake with other people in our community of venting to them and then them acknowledging that very ventable thing in public and going, no, that
was supposed to
that
be...
stays on the call, not when we're out at the bar.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's another thing of just being cautious about it. Not everyone's going to catch that drift.
Right. Well, I mean, like, there's this...
Because they may be meaning well when they're saying, like, when they're trying to be cautious of, like, my chronic physical pain or stuff like that, but then it's just, like, doing it in a way that is public.
So, to that, I'll say two things. This is, I'm gonna share with you what my aunt, my mother, and my father have shared with me. Two things. One, not everybody has your best interest in heart.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's being said in all black households.
I mean, not. What was it? Not everybody love you the same way that you get love inside this house, right? And then two, you got, because now that you know that not everybody has your best interest. Yes, anxiety comes into it when it produces a opportunity for a new friendship, right? So, like, let's say, okay, not everybody has my best interest, but how can I differentiate between the people who do have my best interest and people who act like they have my best interest, right? And then that's where number two shows up. When people show you who they are, trust them.
Yeah.
Believe them. The moment that you see it, believe it, because they slipped up. Now you see it, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Even if they go back to hiding it the way that they did before, the thing is, do not forget it. You can forgive, but you do not forget. You can forgive them for whatever that they did, whatever they're doing, whoever they are, you can forgive them for the person that they are. But that does not mean that you get to forget that the person that they are is the person that they are.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it just bleeds into, when you have experiences like that, it bleeds into anxiety, depression, having something like that happen where you're like, oh shit, I trusted this person for some odd years, and then now I see that I shouldn't have. That's a rough moment.
See, bro, and that right there, and I know I'm gonna cash eat, but I could fucking care less. My thing is fucking apology, straight up, because I caught some shit like a couple months ago, and like from this person was like, well, like, I apologize all the time, and it's like, how many more times can I apologize? And it's like, nigga, fuck your apology. Why? Because you did not change your behavior.
Yeah.
Fuck all that. How am I supposed to trust you?
Mm-hmm. And
you don't show that you're amending your behavior.
It's
Right.
thoughts and prayers for interpersonal conflicts.
Fuck it.
Because I've had that and I've seen that where like, oh, it's like, hey, they apologized. It's like, so they did the bare minimum to get out of consequences.
Yeah,
Right.
like, and so then, and I'm sharing like, yo, like, I feel hurt like this way, and this doesn't absolve like of how I hurt you, but let me show you like, okay, these are the action steps that I'm taking to prevent like me hurting you again. Like, okay, I could do better with like boundary setting and and taking note that like I could do
just
be better with boundaries.
This is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. This is how I'm going to do it. And like over time, like you seeing this,
Right.
we could be in a better space of how
Right.
how I'm contributing to the situation.
Right.
But how you are contributing to the situation, you think by just saying I'm sorry is going to amend all this fucking stupid shit like
that happened.
Nah,
It's like, okay, like I can appreciate an apology in the moment. Because I feel like I feel that my depression has given me a very useful superpower of emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I feel it. I can get usually the root emotion of when people are talking to me. But with that comes, I also get when I don't get that. You know? Like I know it. I feel it. Like when someone apologizes, they actually mean it.
Yeah.
It's different. It feels different. The conversation is different. It's a whole. It's complete. It's just completely different.
It's like the energy behind the statement.
Right. And then you have your half-ass apologies where it's just like, okay, well, like I don't think I did anything wrong, but I can see that you're upset about it. So you know what?
Mm-hmm.
My bad, man. That's on me. Like.
But then, like, you don't really go in deeper of like, okay, yeah, I see why you're upset.
Right.
And this is how I'm owning up to being upset, and how can we move forward? That's the real apology.
Yeah.
How can we actively move forward?
Right. And I'm just like, if the apology doesn't come with some steps,
Yeah.
it doesn't come with heartfelt, like, you know what, man, like I know I put you out.
Yeah.
You know, like I know I put you out. That's on me. I really mean that shit. And you know what? These are the things I'm gonna do so that I know that my mistake doesn't affect what you got going on. And then we can move forward after that. And we can talk about it. We can work it out. We can do what we need to to preserve whatever relationship we're going to have forward. Because remember what I said, forgive, but don't forget.
Yeah. Like, I will empathize with you, but I'm not going to ignore what you did.
Exactly. Like, I forgive you because maybe you had something going on. Maybe something happened to you. Whatever that thing is that made you throw me under the bus, I'm going to go ahead and forgive that. But what I'm not going to forget is that if that situation comes up again, my ass is liable for being thrown under a bus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna put myself in a situation like that.
Because I decided to trust you.
Right. And so now what I need is for you to take steps to show me that you're not gonna just throw my ass under a bus.
Mm-hmm.
And until I see that, you're a bus throwing motherfucker. Like that's what it is until I see something different.
No, I'm gonna take it a step further. You a bitch ass nigga. I don't give a fuck. Like we gon'
like I've cut people. I had a friend for years, and I had to cut him out of my life. I had to, because the cycle that we were going through was mentally abusive to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it would go like this. I'd be like, hey man, let's go do this. In like a week, I'd give him time to figure it out, to pull whatever he's got together. So, and either tell me yes or no. I give him the option. Like I'm a man that enjoys his own company.
Yeah.
I like it. I like being by myself from time to time. I know how to move better when I'm by myself, right?
Screw other people.
Like when I'm by myself, I don't have to worry about what the guy next to me is gonna do. I just gotta worry about me. As long as I'm cool, I make it back home, cool. I don't have to worry about everybody else because they wasn't with me.
Mm.
But if you're going to choose to be with me, then you get my worry.
Yeah,
and if you take my worry and throw it out the window because it didn't matter to you, and you just do whatever, you bail out on me last moment, you run late, just miss it completely, whatever. And this isn't a recent friend. This is a long-time friend. This is a friend from way before.
I wasn't drawn into.
Okay. One day I was talking with this friend about possibly moving out. At the time, I knew that his parents were getting tired of him being at the house. I needed a place to go. He was just getting a new girlfriend. I was with mine. If we went and got like a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, whatever, we can make that shit work.
You got a place with a huge yard with 4 incomes?
Yeah, I'm like, we could make it work, man.
Yeah.
And
Each have your own wing of the house.
He's like, yeah. Right, for about 2 weeks. I call him, I talk to him about the finances about it, show him the places, and I'd be like, hey, what do you think of this one? Oh yeah, man, I think that's cool. I really like it. What about some other ones? I'm like, okay, yeah, let me get some other options. I'm going to get back to you by tomorrow. Tomorrow rolls around, I call him up, no answer, 0, nothing, all day. I called his ass 4 times. Nothing. Not a text, not nothing. Now, this isn't the first time that has happened, but this is the first time that has happened with something so important, right? This is important. Housing is important.
Yeah. And it's
right?
very time sensitive.
And it's very time sensitive. His ass ghosted me for 2 weeks.
That is years in real estate time.
Yeah.
2 weeks. Finally get back to him. And then he wants to tell me that I was pushing for something that he didn't want. I'm like, okay. If you didn't want it, that's all you had to say. That's it. Point blank, period. You didn't want to, I'll find someone else. I'll find some way else to make it work. But don't waste my time.
Nigga, honesty.
So hard to say.
I don't. No is one of my favorite words.
And the people who have the hardest time saying it are usually the ones who I think hear it the most.
No is one of my favorite things to say. You want to do this? No, I don't want to do that.
Sometimes a fuck no also helps.
You're right. You guys ever seen that one clip where it's Roy Wood Jr. and he's like, how do you know what's best for my family, bitch? And he's like, sir, there's no need to yell and cuss. Only one will suffice. And he's like,
that is a very good. That is a phenomenal point. I'm like,
and the guy nods and he's like, how do you know what's best for my family, bitch? And that shit kills me. But it's really that. It's like,
how do you know what's best for my family, female dog?
It's like my whole thing about it is like, you waste my time. Like one of the things that I hate the most, time wasted. I hate waste. I feel deep down in my soul sad when I waste other people's time, because I know how important and that you can't get it back.
Yeah.
Once it's gone, it's gone. There's no getting it back. It's like sleep. It's just good. That's
like,
it.
You can pay money back, but
right. But time is a resource that everybody only has a finite amount of, and you've wasted people's time. That's big, especially in something so important. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, I can't be friends with that person anymore. I had to cut him completely out of my life. But I mean, when you have situations like that, and that's not the sad thing about all of that, is that is not a rare thing. That's not a rare occurrence that you have fallouts with friends over important things. It's not rare that you have to remove certain people from your life because sometimes they're only there for a season.
Yeah.
But what it does is when there's no recourse of action, it adds to your doubt of society. Right? Because one person's like that, definitely gonna be a handful of other niggas that are like that. Yep. And so then you start going, I don't need new friends. The people that I have are the people that I'll keep.
And see, to add to that, that becomes like, yeah, you can't rely on niggas. So then, like, I'ma just like go work as much as fucking possible. So then, bro.
So
resisting that urge.
Resisting
the urge.
To quote the politics of trauma, which is fondly on my shelf over there. They were talking about this more so with like coping mechanisms, but it also applies to people. Just because what something got you as far as where you are now doesn't mean it's supposed to be with you for the rest of your life. And it's okay to value something for like, hey, this coping mechanism, this person got me to this point, but it no longer serves me. Yep. And if I hang on to it, it's going to start to reverse the progress I made. And which is segues into the next question of what are some healthy coping mechanisms you've had over the years to deal with your anxiety?
I don't have any. Like, I get this a lot. Like, yeah, either coping mechanisms or what makes you happy.
I mean, like, I don't know. And I don't see you outside blowing clouds like some of the other folk in our community.
Yeah, like, because, like, so here's the thing, like, when it comes to that, I don't judge anybody that does whatever they do to get by. Like, it's fucking hard. It's hard to cope. And so, I grew up around drug dealers, like niggas outside of my house slinging crack and coke. I remember when I was like 14, 15 years old, seeing my older brother getting arrested and being put away in prison for slinging. And like my one of my other brothers carried a gun. He was 13, I was 12 years old. And like, you know, it's just hard to put into words.
So there's
yeah.
You know, for a long time, I do this and I've done this, but I didn't realize what it was until recently. Is I care so much about the playlist that I have playing for me when I'm doing anything.
I can relate.
That it literally becomes my soothing. My music soothes me to be able to be a part of whatever I'm doing. Right? If I'm outside, and rarely, except for when I'm at work, and sometimes not even fucking then, I'll always have headphones. Always got headphones. Headphones are important, dude. It's the way that I choose to soothe myself while being a part of the world, but not being part of the world.
Yeah, and that's.
Go ahead.
That's so honestly. Now that you say it, yeah, this is how I cope with like music. Like, and last year when I was after my pops passed and I meshed the loss of that with my former partner, I developed a work addiction. Like that. It was already there, but like I managed it better. Like, but last year alone, I made like 8 rap albums. One of them I completed in a week, and I put it out like pretty quickly. Like I released like 4 out of those 8 albums, and like if I want to right now, I could drop one tomorrow. I could drop 2 tomorrow if I really wanted to.
I love that.
But like that shit is. It's unhealthy.
Yes,
it's so bad. And then like I developed a lust issue. Like,
well, it kind of answers my next question, which was what are unhealthy coping mechanisms you had, and this is I feel like a good segue of a healthy coping mechanism becoming unhealthy, because I relate to you on the work addiction. During this whole podcast, I almost had a fucking stroke from the stress. I wasn't eating because I was trying to save money and then also just work way too much. And as like artists, it's a part of our like we judge ourselves by the output. But at a certain point, it's just like, what's the point of the albums if it's like we're even more stressed out and miserable?
Yeah, unhealthy. I mean, I put work addiction as part of that unhealthiness because like I completely ignored like my friendships, my relationships. Yeah. Like the shit was like always just on the rocks because like I got this thing because like now I'm the man of the house. Like that's something that like that was told to me when my pops was in the hospital. Like my grandma said it, my mom said it. Eerily, my dad said it 2 weeks before. He just it kind of felt like he knew. Right. Like all right, like I'm so serious. Like you need to take care of like your sister. You need to take care of your mom. You need to take care of this house. If something happens to me, I'm boy, I will kick your ass in the house. As soon as I see you again. Like it's on site. Like I will hunt your ass. So like it's
real, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
real.
and like I like, especially like you having been making art since grade school, that was always an issue with me once I started getting really into poetry in high school. Was my grades, attendance, everything else came second to me doing good at the next mic or show. And I ran into that in college where I was trying to be a climate science major, but the comedy bug bit me, and San Francisco had a great comedy scene, and it was just like, oh yeah, I know. I was studying for calculus tests on the bus ride back from the mic, and and I was teaching music too, so I'd go to the comedy venue with a guitar and my math homework, so I could do a 5-minute set, and then I would do my studying on the hour bus ride back, and just like, yeah, it was it probably why I didn't stick with that major? Yeah, absolutely. But it was just that something about being on stage, doing good, or just feeling like comedy was the one place where I felt like I wasn't the stupidest person in the room, because I was teaching music to bilingual students and struggling to keep up with people who were good at calculus, and I'm like, I want to make the weather not hot because the climate change scares me, and that was the depth of like my scientific reasoning. Not, oh, I'm good at this. It's I mean well, but I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, into properly like trying to convey what I was saying earlier about like my brother being like a drug dealer and like and my other brother like carrying a gun, like the just coping with environment, like, and coping with like not having much, with like money and like different things of that shit, and how that spiraled into like other issues and whatnot. And because they struggled with drugs, one of them, I actually had to fight in the middle of the street because he was on PCP and like he beat my ass like in front of like folks in the cul-de-sac. And like other ones, like we always got into it because like he utilized alcohol like as a drug of like coping with different shit, and tried to like bring me into that world when like I was already going through a lot, and I was like, I'm kind of scared to see like how I would be on alcohol. Like my dad was an alcoholic my early years, and he had a heart attack, and like I seen him on his deathbed, and like I was like, that's terrifying. Tubes down his throat and everything, could not move, and he beat it.
That's
you know,
so
I think when you lose a parent, it definitely puts a lot of strain on the oldest to kind of just now it sucks because there's a lot of things that. Okay, let me start this with one. I've lost both of my parents also, right?
My condolences.
It's, you know what, I'll tell you the same thing that my aunt told me like a week after. I am not the first, and sadly I will not be the last. You know, it's an occurrence that happens all the time, and that's sad. But the thing is that as a young man, young woman, whoever is losing that parent, that's a plethora of knowledge that they made it to that far in their life. And you know, I think now, because I lost my father at 17. I lost I apologize. I lost my mother at 16. I lost my father at 18. I think now to the times of like, I never really knew them as people. I knew them as my mom and my dad, but I never knew them as people, like
adult to adult,
like as an adult to an adult. And I get to situations now in my early 20s and my late 20s, and I'm like, I wonder, you know, what would he have said? You know, what would they have said in the situation that I'm in now? Because I have questions. Right? And you know, that's truly when my depression like hit me hard. But you know, there's something real about, you know, when I learned truly that I wasn't the only one that had lost a parent, and that had responsibilities to their siblings to make sure that they stayed good. Like my brothers were young, very young. They were still in elementary school.
Damn.
And I was like, my aunt had to work, and she had to work. It was just her. Like, my depression got me to spiral in a way where, just like you guys, I got addicted to working to the point where, like, I had to be busy. I couldn't sit still too long. I got a job. I just got into college, and I got a job. I had to pick my brothers up from school, help them with schoolwork. I had to figure out how to now juggle a completely full program of things that I had put into my life because I couldn't be in one place for too long. Right? And you're right. It destroys you more than letting it out, It destroys you more than letting it out, and I let it completely destroy me. I let it run its full course until I failed on everything.
Shit.
Right? I failed on everything. I failed on being a decent older brother sometimes. I definitely failed at school. I ended up dropping out to pursue a second job just so that I could, now I felt like I needed to make money, and that nobody around me was telling me that I needed to. But the thing was, like, when my parents passed away, their car got repoed. Like, almost immediately.
There wasn't like generational wealth they could leave you with.
No, there was nothing. And so I was like, I gotta work. I gotta work. Auntie Kim is putting in so much work. She's working 12-hour, 16-hour days, and I'm over here at home, making dinner, whatever, cleaning the house. It never felt like enough. And then when I ended up picking up work, I failed at my home. I failed inside the home. I was either succeeding outside the house or I was succeeding inside the house, but I was not succeeding everywhere. It destroys you having such a immense responsibility without the plethora of knowledge that would have been easily accessible to you.
Yeah.
Right? And then to lose that and then have to just figure it the fuck out. Right? And I'm not even saying that parents, know everything or whatever, but it's one of those things where it's like having more people in your counsel to pull information from is not a bad thing. But here's the fucking trick. Once you lose them in the way that you lost them, it's hard to want to put more people in your counsel.
Ooh.
It's because you're like, especially if for a little bit of time you're succeeding. Now, I'm not saying like a long time. You could be succeeding for about a month. It's hard to accept that you need more people. Right? Because you're like, they're going to leave. They're going to let me down. That, like, if they're going to leave or let me down or die, then what is the point of putting them in the circle?
It's that building up a wall to keep yourself safe, but that's the risk and the reward is because I feel like we've all had experience where it's like we let someone in our life and it's like, oh, cool, awesome, great. But if you are approaching a new person with that timidness and that distrust, it can sabotage it from the start.
That's
And
true
I
also.
have had to struggle with that. Like, I run into this, and this is kind of like why I want to dive into this. Like, my anxiety is like my factory default setting. It takes me time to get comfortable and with people, and I ran this on dates all the time. Every first date, it's just like I'm trying my best, but with the exception of enough weed to make Snoop Dogg raise an eyebrow, I'm going to be anxious regardless. And I have to have learned how to like play it off cool, or just like, hey, this is just nerves or anything, and it's just that, but it's also a byproduct of just distrust, nervousness, fight or flight. And I have one more question before we get into the timeline. What's one thing you wish people who don't struggle with anxiety knew about it?
That is not. It's a real thing. Like it's not fake. Like I had some stupid shit that happened to me just yesterday. Like where someone made the comment of like, "You're acting like a rapper," and I'm like, "You bitch made punk." Like one. If anyone actually does the research of what like being a rapper it's actually one of the most dangerous jobs you could get in the entertainment field. It actually is. Because like one, you do actually have to watch yourself at all times. Two, like there's so many people that's trying to take advantage of you. And then like the whole concept of checking in, gang affiliations. If you're not affiliated with a gang, then like you gotta know like your way around cities and different things of that sort. Like there's so many different things that actually goes into being a rapper, and then the vulnerability aspect. You're letting people into your world. There's so many different things that goes with it. So yeah, like I just happen to be a rapper with paranoia and anxiety and being diagnosed with those different things. And so like I really wish people know that this shit is real. It's not a thing of like trying to put on a persona of like I don't trust anyone and I feel like people don't love me. That's just my default. I genuinely struggle with trusting people. Like,
well, with everything you've said,
yeah,
it'd
like,
be weird if you trusted people after everything you went through.
And I mean this with the most sincerity. Like it I don't have a vendetta against anybody, but I don't from time to time I don't trust everyone. And it's nothing on them.
Right.
Like my best friends, I love them to death. Sometimes I don't trust them. I just don't. I can't explain it.
It just happens. It's just you wake up one day and you're like, you know what? I don't think these people really like me. You like, and you know what? I don't. For a long time, for me, you know, especially when I was spiraling in my depression, I would be like, oh, these people don't like me, and I'm not about to spend my time with people that don't like me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, and
then they'll turn around and be like, no, Phil, we love you. We love you.
Ooh, and it weirds you out, right?
And then I'm like, that's not what I need to hear right now, and I close the door. You know, metaphorically. It's not like they knocking on my door.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like, you know, yeah, right now, I don't fuck with people. You know, and I need that. There's a need in that, because I really do feel that some people are uncomfortable with their own company.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
right?
I had in college I had a housemate who was like pathologically scared of being alone, so it was always a ton of people over, or he would chime in and join you whatever you were doing, and it's just like, you have more money than us, you can afford to just go out and do stuff, we're just hanging out here because it's free to hang out at the apartment we pay for.
Right.
Yeah.
And there were times where it's like, we would, like, our other housemate and I would just be hanging out quietly watching a movie, and this dude would come through with, like, a party full of people, and it's just like, oh, yeah, because now people are going to be here all night, and he doesn't have to be alone for the next 4 hours.
And see, like, even to... Here's like another story. Like, last year, I had a situation where, and this plays into like me like always questioning like if someone like truly like loves me or not, or actually care about me. Mm-hmm. Last year, a day after my dad's birthday, it was like 7:30 in the morning. I was walking to the bus stop. I was trying something new in terms of like religious practices and going to like a Buddhist temple.
Okay.
Arthur, was Arthur proud of you?
Shout out Arthur.
He's just like, he's going to the temple. I'm spreading our ideas.
Right.
Shout out to Arthur. It was an old friend of mine, and she was like, yeah, come through to the Buddhist temple, like try something new. And on my way to the bus stop, I was still in my neighborhood. A car pulls up and like dude like flicked me off. And I'm like, okay, what the fuck is that? So then I flicked him off, and then I kept it pushing. I still walking. He's following me, and I'm like, all right. And then he pulls into like a parking lot, and then waving to me to come to the car. He getting all rowdy and shit. I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna just speed up. And this is all in the fucking morning. Like, this guy chose violence on a Sunday, which is crazy. And like, so then like I kept walking. I'll turn around. He whipping out of the parking lot and then starts speeding up like
to catch up.
Yeah, to catch up to me. And then like, all right, shit. So then now it's like a full on chase. And he tried to cut me off. I ran in the street, and now like I'm running down the block and shit. Calling my pop. He's like, hey, I said, yo, some dude's following me. Then all I heard was like a dump on the floor, and he grabbed his shotgun. He's standing in the middle of the street when I got back. And then this car did not come on my street. I don't know why, but
they heard the shotgun in the background.
Right.
And so then like later on that day, I posted in like the Palm Search chat like, yo, like this happened to me. And then like someone hit me up, and they was like, oh, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I don't, like, I'm scared. Like that really terrified me. And then they tell me about some other bullshit like, oh yeah, I got this thing, and then I'm like, did you not just hear what I just said? Like, you probably couldn't, like, you probably would never ever see me again.
Right.
But you want to tell me about some shit celebrating you.
Right, like, how you gonna call with fake concern?
Like, yeah, and then that adds to my paranoia and my anxiety. If, like, do you really truly care?
I mean, like, how
like,
could it not? Like, I've been on the side. I've been on that side. I've been on the side where it's like, okay, like, yeah, this thing happened to me, and like I'm still reeling, right? I'm still coming back. I still just I need to bring my focus back to where I'm at, because like I'm physically safe now. And then someone come and talk to me like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, whew. Well, you know what, man, like, the cops pulled me over. They tried to give me a hard time. They asked me, they had me walk, did the whole thing, man. Like, I thought I was gone. I thought they was about to take me, but they sent me on my way. And they're like, oh, that's cool. I'm glad for that, man. I'm glad for that. Yeah, man. I'm still kind of reeling from it. Well, I got this show later. I'm like,
fucking artist,
I'm not driving. Like, did you not just hear me? Like, I just got pulled over by the cop on my street. I'm not driving.
Hey, do you want to spend more time in a situation where you could be profiled further?
Right. And I'm like, People call with fake concern. People come with fake concern, hoping for platitudes all the time.
Oh yeah, and
it's low key. It's kind of my sign of being like, oh, I can't talk to them.
yeah, and it's good to keep your guard up and to be aware of that, because I remember how few people were willing to check in on me when I bottomed out with my drinking, versus the people who were then applauding me
At the end of it.
Yeah, and I was just like going, I don't blame them for being distant when I was at my most toxic, but every little bit of acknowledgement that I existed or that I was valued,
Completely gone.
it was, well, it just, like, the people who had the long conversation with me, like you, Alex, Arthur, Derek Brown, shout out to all of them, of just the people who were willing to hold space for me when it's like I couldn't tell people in my family what I was going through without them understandably being mad, but that was
Oh, okay.
My fault.
No, you
pouring myself. But just going like, oh, people want to be a part for the end when you're making the cool piece about it, and it's just like a, hey, it's nothing on them, but just knowing like how in is someone.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, are they gonna celebrate the album about the recovery, or are they gonna be with you
during the
Yeah.
recovery. Yeah.
And again, like, I don't blame people, because I've had to distance myself from other people who were going through their own toxicity just because, like, oh, I got my own shit, I can't deal with it right now. But the people who are there, oh, Arthur could call me up at 2 a.m. and I'm in bed with the love of my life. I'm be like, what do you need, dude?
Right.
Same thing with, like, Derek Bragg would be like, I'm about to fight 15 ninjas. I'm like, I'm there.
On what street?
Yeah.
Like, I think it just plays it. Of course, it plays into anxiety, but it plays into more of what I said earlier. Is like when people show you who they are, believe it. But then, if you're going to make the decision to keep that person in your life in whatever capacity that you choose to, you gotta know with knowing who they are, you now know the level of expectation you can put on that person. Right?
Yeah.
And that can be hard. That can be hard because it's like, okay, do I place any expectation on this person and expect them to not let me down? Or do I lessen my expectation? Or do I just not call on that person at all?
Yeah, and then that's where, like, personal accountability comes into play, where we gotta, like, you gotta protect yourself, and like if somebody shows their true colors, like, you gotta believe what you see the first time, and then just follow through with your intuition. Yeah. And yeah.
All right. There will be more discussions. Let's get into this timeline. Written sometime between 460 and 370 BC. Medical texts attributed to Hippocrates. Hippocrates? The enunciation. Or his followers mentions a man's night flute phobia, describing the man's emotions as terror. Phobia is mentioned as a medical disorder rather than as being caused by the Greek god Phobos. That's like our first ballpark of anxiety written account of what we would come to know. Between 106 BC and 43 BC, Cicero writes in the Tuscan Disputations that anxiety, affliction, and worry are disorders, trying to differentiate the diseased body from the troubled mind. Anxiety is referred to again as a medical illness different from sadness, because prior to a lot of this, it was just everything was like spirits, gods.
Right. Everything was caused by some
Yeah, it was
being in the sky.
or just like more polytheistic animist faith, where it's like, oh, you went to the shrine and you're feeling a certain way. It's the spirit.
Oh, talking through you.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
The words in the Tuscan Disputations, the words in specific, the words and specific meanings changed a lot over the last 2 millenniums. Many different forms of the words we know today as anxiety and anguish were used to describe the condition we know now as anxiety. This was one of the hard parts of this research, was it was just telephone mixed with Scrabble of all these different words describing smaller bits of what we had just been talking about. And it was just them like trying to, like Hangman, just guessing bit by bit.
Oh, what basically
Yeah,
what
because
makes it.
I read a word soup and I was trying to like boil it down to, there was a lot of figuring it out over the 2 millenniums. The various predecessors of the word anguish were usually used to describe the physical symptoms, while the predecessor of the word anxiety were used to describe the mental symptoms. Because like that's another thing that anxiety is fascinating for me is like sometimes I deal with the physical stuff way more than the mental. Where like, oh, mentally I'm depressed, but it's my body that's anxious that I'm trying to deal with through like stretching out, smoking, or just mindfulness.
Right.
In the biblical Hebrew, Job 7:10 says, "The narrowness of my spirit," is how Job expresses his anguish. The word anxiety we use today is a descendant of the Latin word angor, A-N-G-O-R, G-O-R, and its verb ango, A-N-G-O, which means to constrict. Philosophers tried hard to understand anxiety. Greek and Latin philosophers worked to identify the pathology of anxiety and treat the effects of it. Ancient philosopher Seneca, who lived between 4 BC and 65 AD. He was there for Jesus.
Well, you know what the story of Job is, don't you?
No, I was bad in Sunday school.
The story of Job is basically the story of if a single man who believes in God lost everything, would he denounce God? God and Lucifer, the devil, had made a bet on it, basically, that if he could get Job to denounce him, that, because I think Job was one of God's most favored.
In that he would like fuck with him for trials and tribulations.
No, he was blessed. He had daughters, he had a farm, he had everything that he needed. He had a beautiful family. I think he had 2 daughters and a son and a wife. He had a farm, and he had animals on that farm, and they produced great, product. I think it was wheat. I can't remember specifically. I wasn't that great at Sunday school either.
It's weird that the Good Omens show wasn't biblically accurate.
Right. But then the devil basically he took everything away. He took his daughters, he took his son, he took his farm, he took his wife. And at the end of it, Job did not denounce God. Right? He
still simped over God after all of that.
He go ahead.
No, because it was a thing of like testing faith. Like after everything, like that's why they always say like no matter what happens, like no matter what trials and tribulations that you're in, to always have faith or believe like God is still standing next to you because your blessings is still like around the corner.
Seneca's work led him to think that fear of death, worrying about one's own demise, were one of the primary causes and or effects of anxiety. To quote Seneca, "He who fears death will never act as becomes a living man." We've come a long way as far as saying basic statements, right?
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully.
Seneca suggests trying to live more in the present by finding a way to combine the past and future perspectives into a focus on the present. Seneca also says he makes his life long by combining all times into one. They were really going the Stoic Hallmark card route.
Yeah, I see that.
The often competing philosophy branches of the Stoics and Epicureans had similar notions of how to deal with anxiety. The Epicureans strived to reach a state called ataraxia, free from worry, the hakuna matata of ancient Greece and Rome. They believed one way to reach ataraxia was to find a way to get rid of negative perceptions of the past and future. The Greek philosopher Epicurus, who lived around 340 BC, is where the branch of philosophy gets its name from. Lucretius, a student of Epicurus's, wrote praising him for this observation. Men were lords, and that they yet within the home still had the anxious heart which vexed life unpausingly with torments of the mind. To summarize that, rich people are also feeling down. From the 1500s to the 1700s. Those your friends, Phil?
Yeah, I know them very well. Go ahead.
It's probably a gang of 19-year-olds on dirt bikes. So, from the 1500s to the 1700s, the symptoms we associate with anxiety were given the blanket diagnosis of the time, melancholia. If anything was wrong with you emotionally, you had melancholia.
Mm-hmm.
Panic attacks were viewed as an extreme form of melancholia. 1621, Robert Burton published The Anatomy of Melancholia. Patients who were quiet got diagnosed with melancholia, while agitated and noisy patients got diagnosed with mania. Burton himself struggled with what we now call social anxiety. He noticed fear and sorrow could occur independently, but assumed they were all different symptoms of the same melancholia. The 1700s. The last major textbook written in Latin is published by Boissier de Savages. I swear this name, it's the most made-up sounding name in all of the... Boissier. Boisser de Savages.
I'm not gonna lie. It's a pretty boss-ass name, though.
Yeah, the boss of...
like, I'm not gonna lie. That's
the boss of savages.
Boissier Savage?
Boissier de Savages.
Boissier de Savages?
Think if Johnny Depp were featuring a bossy perfume.
That's an MF Doom group name if I've ever heard.
No, that's an alias of 21 Savage.
That's an alias of 21 Savage. Boss of the
That's
Savages.
his brother.
It was the first major French nosology. In this textbook, I'll backtrack a bit. In this textbook, illness or disorder are referred to as anegrutudo, while panophobia shares the most similarities with our modern definition of anxiety. The Greek adjective pantophobos, which means fear of everything, is where we get the Latin word panophobia from. Latin was just the cover of Greek. That God's language, it was just the...
It was
the heavily inspired, borderline plagiarizing. The definition in Savage's textbook is a little different, saying panophobia is a fear without any clear cause, or a night terror, while the Greek term says fear of everything. The 1800s, existential philosophers like Heidegger and Kierkegaard would arrive at similar conclusions to Seneca and elaborate further. 1869.
Okay.
Neurasthenia was first described by George Miller Beard. And Miller Beard sounds like a bro term for spilling beer on your beard.
It sounds like a guy from the South.
It's like, I got why do you smell? I got Miller Beard.
I said what I said.
Neurasthenia describes some key components of our current medical definition of anxiety, like discomfort, hysteria, neurological sensitivity, along with other acute symptoms of depression. However, the term in its description failed to properly encompass anxiety from our current perspective. During the late 1800s and early 1900s, neurasthenia was widely used as a term in diagnosis. German psychiatrist Emil Kraepelin and Austrian neurologist Sigmund Freud studied this research when arriving at their own conclusions that would influence later psychiatrists, neurologists, and many other doctors and academics. So, we're going to have an anxiety part 2 episode in the future, because the 1900s was fucking nuts. And because pharmaceutical companies and husbands started over-medicating women rather than listening to them.
That makes sense.
Shocker. Just shocker. And this led to other major health issues and disastrous impacts for women that we will unpack. Fast forward to today. This is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on this episode, Chris, because you're a poet, a singer, rapper, and so much of this is just refining the words to get to our specific understanding of the human condition and the depth of the human experience. 2019. Today, science recognizes 7 different types of anxiety disorder. 1. Generalized anxiety disorder. Key symptom, persistent or excessive worry. Number 2, panic disorder. Key symptom, panic attacks. I felt like panic attacks when I was younger were like the seed for all of my other mental issues. Like the glass broke and it left a window open
for everything else to come in.
Yeah, and that's another thing, like with mental health, is deal with it young or you're cleaning up the mess of other things that it spills into.
That's if you realize that it's a mess.
Yeah. 3, social anxiety disorder. Key symptom, pretty self-explanatory, fear of social situations. 4, agoraphobia. Key symptom, fear of potentially trapping or embarrassing situations. Trapping could be like interactions with the cops, embarrassing, like with friends and,
right,
there's drama.
You know what? I feel like with knowing that definition, the depictions of agoraphobia that I've seen on TV don't have it right. Most of the time, whenever I see someone with agoraphobia on television, they just stay stuck in the house. Like, they're just afraid to go outside. And I'm just like, at first I was like, I don't know enough about it, but by that definition, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're afraid of going outside.
They're afraid of what's going to happen when they're
outside.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a rough depiction, but anyway, that's more of a mental thought. Keep going.
No, I like it. Chime in. 5, separation anxiety disorder. Key symptom, excessive fear about separation from people an emotional bond is shared with. Number 6, specific phobias. Key symptom, avoidance behavior around specific situations and objects that are irrationally and intensely feared. And that's another one where it's like the TV and movies, they like to just take the phobia thing, where it's like, for me, it's like, I have a phobia of the sun because it sets my skin on fire, and I plan stuff at sunset and not really earlier, but that's like an avoidance behavior of mine, because it's like kind of getting to the agoraphobia, like, oh, I'm going to be in a scenario where I'm sweating, my skin is more reddish, and I'm going to be insecure because I have had that where it's like my body just doesn't handle the heat well.
Right.
And there's times where you're like, is something wrong? You're sweating and nervous. I'm like, well, I'm nervous because the sun's going to kill me. But, or not kill me, lightly char me and ruin my weekend.
Right. Like one of the more, I don't want to say well known, but one of the ones that's more how do I say it? It's like one that's the most portrayed is like arachnophobia.
Yeah, well,
that's a big one.
Well, okay. Well, there's a bit of an evolutionary component to that because like studies have shown that it's like spiders and snakes down to like monkeys. You could show like an adult monkey who's never seen a spider or a snake, and the shape and terror of that is so genetically passed on, it'll respond with fear.
I mean, like I feel it's more of, I feel like, how do you tell what's a phobia and what's just a survival technique? You know?
Yeah.
Like how do you it brings it back to the whole anxiety thing with black men. Like, how do you know that it's anxiety or if your worry is true?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Like, systematically we know.
Well, we don't have body cams on spiders.
That's true.
So the only one line of work, we had to put cameras on them because we don't really trust you.
Right.
Like, how bad would librarians have to fuck up where it's like, you're wearing cameras?
You know, like Chris Rock was like, you know, in any other job, we can't have like bad apples. You know, like we can't have like one bad pilot that doesn't like landing the plane.
That's, yeah.
You know, like he gets fired.
He goes, I had a bad apple.
Or,
it was tart. It didn't murder.
Yeah.
Or potentially die. Like,
right.
Really don't fucking land a fucking plane, right? Like,
exactly. We don't hire those people.
Yeah.
Only Boeing's allowed to make planes unsafe.
Fact. But I'm just saying, man, I'm one of those bad apple type of situations. Anyway.
Yeah. We're almost through. So, number 7, selective mutism. Key symptom, inability to speak in certain situations while able to speak in others, usually seen in children. According to the World Health Organization, 301 million people in the world are affected by some form of anxiety disorder. 2 of them are right here.
Possibly 3. I gotta go get checked out now.
The fun of this show is everyone's like, I think I have what he just talked about.
Right. It's one of those, I feel like it's one of those WebMD type days. I'm like,
Stony WebMD.
I'm like, I feel that way.
Well, that's why when like Chaya's going, yeah, autistic people, we obsess over one topic, and I'm looking at my multiple pages of notes on one topic, and I'm like, my oddly specific podcast. It's like, okay, you mentioned obsessions,
right? But I'm like, this one touches a little close. But then I'm also like, we're talking about real life shit. Like,
yeah.
It go either way. Anyway.
Childhood and adolescence is often when symptoms of anxiety take root. There are higher rates of anxiety in women than men. Hence our part 2. Also, because of like what you're saying, I wonder how much of women's anxiety is solely caused by men being exactly who they are.
You know what? If you were to ask me, I would not be surprised if most women's anxiety. I'm sure that there are cases of anxiety that just persists from childhood trauma and social experiences, but it's also from, I've talked with my fiance, with other women, and it's a lot of a worry of, from what my small selection of experiences has been, about the possible social interaction that they'll have at any point in time. It's like, you know, they need to make sure that they're protected. They need to make sure that they know who's going to be there, that they know what they're going to look like, that they need to know every possible facet. And in that part, I could definitely see that being a form of anxiety, and that being almost solely to the history of abusive women.
Yeah, it's like Neil Brennan said, consent's 100-year-old concept.
Right. And so I'm like, and you know what? I can't even, it's hard for an anxiety of that nature to be met with any kind of consoling, because
we can't imagine it. And like, one of my few experiences where I got to like relate was I was at a party in college with a good partying drinking buddy, and we're both just like, yeah, let's only have a few. Let's remember how we got home, and
Right.
we got drugged, and we woke up, and it was one of those things where it's like 2 a.m. We'd only had a few drinks each. We both gave each other that like nod of when you're in a circle, like, you good, dude? Like, yeah, I'm good. You good? And then the footage stops. We are waking up we are last outside downstairs. We're up in the house upstairs. And all the people on the floor were the same people in the circle we were with. They took our keys. We didn't have our cars, but they took our keys thinking we were going to try to
Drive.
even though it was just storeroom keys.
Right.
And 7 hours of no memory. We caught up with another friend of mine, and he was like, yeah, you guys weren't drunk. There was something in your eyes. You were coming down from something. And then I heard rumors for years after that. But when I woke up, people were going, you drunk assholes. You ruined our night. And we're just like,
Oh my goodness, what did we do?
and yeah, and that was like one of the few where it's like, oh, that's what you're dealing with? That is fucking horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's so like whenever a woman kind of like expresses like their fear of like just general man, something may happen. Like, what if like there's a dude, and I'm like, I can't even fight that logic, man.
Yeah.
Because it's like I can sit there and be like, I'll go with you. I'll make sure that you know that you're all right, and I'll do that. But the thing is like, I can't sit there and tell her nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know too many stories now.
Yeah,
Of where someone said, oh no, nothing's gonna happen, and then sure enough, some shit happens.
And you can't say, I'm going to protect you, because unless you're glued to that person's side and armed, like, I've had that feeling of powerlessness where women I know and was friends with were assaulted, and it's just like...
You can't even fight the logic. There's too much evidence.
Well, not that I'm trying to argue against it. It's like, I can't do anything to hold the person who hurt you to account.
Right. I mean, like, it's not... For me, it's just it's a consoling thing. It's like I hate to see people like worried, anxious, depressed in a situation like that. I have nothing that I can say.
Yeah.
That's going to suddenly take away all of that worry, because there's too much evidence that proves me wrong in whatever I'm going to say. Like, I'm sure that any woman from almost any city can give me 5 stories of how, they were sexually objectified, or how they were worried because a man followed them for a little too long, or, they were just at the wrong place because, their friends told them that it was going to be a good time. And I'm just like, it worries. It's a worrisome thing, because it's like, how can I make it right? How can I get you to be okay with like going outside when there's so much that's telling women that their place by societal standards is unsafe outside? Is that they could be a victim at any moment. That is something that, as a male, yeah, you get it. Like, you could be flipped off on the street and chased down the street at any given moment. But it's like, it's different when it's us.
Yeah, and like, I've been physically assaulted, and it's still like, even when I was physically assaulted, I was never worried about the sexual component. I was always just like, oh, I gotta square up with this dude and he's gonna knock my teeth out.
Right.
And I was assaulted, and I still deal with like chronic pain from that, but just one of those like, it was just anger and mute and blows. It wasn't like they were trying to get into me. And like, I was thinking, like, I really noticed this in college. Like, guys are so awesome. Women arm themselves with like tasers, brass knuckles, knives, pepper spray. It's like they're going in there with like low grade security, like the stuff cops should use but don't. And
Right.
it's just like, and what are they doing? Oh, I'm going to get pizza I'm going to a bar to get pizza.
Dude,
And it's
I sent my fiance out this morning with an air horn, pepper spray, bear spray, and a stick.
Bear spray.
Bear spray sprays 35 feet, while pepper spray sprays 15.
So you got your mid range.
That's smart.
Also, bear spray has to burn through fur.
Bear spray is also is just like it says, it's effective towards animals too. So like, her job, it's like it's for the coyote that she saw, but it's also like, if something happens, she leaves that place at 6:30 at night. Right? And she's told me like the security guard isn't in the parking lot. And the way that her building is, she got a little bit of a walk to get back from her building to her car. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's too much. You get like, now we got a stick in the apartment and a stick in her car.
One of those like extenders.
No, like a wooden stick that I've gotten that is from Home Depot. And we duct tape the end of it, and she just carries it. And
I'm just thinking of the Franklinator from Futurama, where they tied a badger to a stick.
Dude, like we have so much protective gear in our house. We have like the rings that have the spikes. We have belt buckles that you pull off and become brass knuckles. Like we got the pepper spray. We got the ball and lasso lanyard, where it's just like a ball at the end so you can swing. We also got the metal stick that you can use. And I'm like, it's like the one that fits on the keychain, like that big. And it also comes with a point to break window. Like, she walks out protected. Yeah. But I'm like, the fact that the security is necessary.
No, it's definitely necessary. Like, again, like, circles back to the conversation earlier. Like, again, my brother having the need to have a gun. And like, yeah, these different things that we need to proceed. Like, I remember my one of my best friends, I look at him as a little brother, and he got robbed, and he's like, man, I gotta carry a knife with me. I'm like,
yeah,
I hear that, like, but at the same time, like, just coming from where we come from, if you use that knife, when it comes down to it, violence begets violence, and then those motherfuckers
gonna come.
Yeah, they're gonna come. Like, so then, yeah, it's
a double-edged sword, because you protect yourself, and sure, you protected yourself now,
but that means someone's gonna come back and get a
somebody like, if they found you walking home, they gonna find you walking home again.
Yeah.
You know, it's only gonna be worse. There's only gonna be more people. There's only gonna be more of a threat next time than now. But you know, it's one of those things where it's like your parents teach you not to run from situations like that. But then, what happens when that's the only safe alternative to a situation like that?
Yeah, and like I'm grateful that my dad taught me like self-defense and like boxing when I went to middle school, and just like like my brother and I sparred elementary through high school, and just knowing like, oh, that's how you take a punch. That's what it feels like to get hit. So that like when I'm taking public transit and I see one getting harassed, I call out the dudes, because it's like my body is trained for it. I know how to respond, and I know how to protect myself. Even though I'm not the biggest or the strongest, I know how to get as much out of my body to keep me safe as I need to. And I did go through that after I got jumped and assaulted. Like, oh, I don't care, switch behind me. I got mugged by Venice Crips in broad daylight, and it's just one of those like. And I talk to security guards a lot, because I'm out at venues and stuff of like de-escalation. And the security guard I'm friends with, he's like, Yeah, I wear a thin stab shirt under my shirt that's not noticeable, because if I'm wearing body armor and someone really wants to do split harm, they'll come back with a bigger gun. If I'm out here rocking a firearm, they're going to come back with a bigger firearm. Baton, firearm. And it's just like de-escalating, knowing that there are people out there looking for conflict, and if they don't see the potential for a conflict,
right, then
they'll go on their way. And that same night I was chatting with the security guard, I walked by another venue, and the security guard in the ski mask and body armor was upsetting the cops, because they're like, what are you, you're dressed like a shitty tactical strip mall ninja. Why are you...
That's funny. But I mean, like, that's the reality of the situation, which makes the talk of it's almost like it's hard to bring up anxiety without talking about, or it's hard to bring up anxiety without talking about society and its anxious motives.
But that's the point of why why I want to have this discussion, because I feel like the pharmaceutical companies, it's like, oh, it's neurochemical. The adults who are making your life worse, it's neurochemical, when it's like, no, these are very real things, and we can get to the neurochemical after we deal with all of the other murderous societal poisoning things. Like, while there are 301 million people who experience anxiety, only 1 in 4 with anxiety will ever receive treatment. So that's three-quarters of the people with anxiety either don't know they have it or are just managing it with whatever coping mechanisms they have. And to bring us back, like, to continue on the treatment thing, Seneca was going in the right direction in ancient times when he was saying, like, because today mindfulness is still a key component of therapy, meditation, and other holistic health practices.
Hey, question.
So, yeah, this is the last question. Having gone through over 2,000 years of history, what's one thing you learned about anxiety today that you wish you knew sooner?
Oh, shit. That's something I have to chew on.
Sources: Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the World Health Organization, the National Library of Medicine. Is there any shows or events, albums you have that you want to plug or announce?
Not at this moment. I mean, like, yeah, like my musical Silhouettes of Scarlet that covers like grief, and within grief there is like the component of anxiety that, you know, because it's always a thing of like how I'm gonna get out of this, and like as we was talking earlier about my issues with like lust and work addiction, and I'm happy to say that I kind of conquered like my lust issue. Work still got a long ways to go, but yeah, it's just this thing of like, how do I get out of this? How can I trust people with like this story that I'm trying to like share and present, and for it to not fall on like deaf ears, and yeah.
I get you, man.
I have one more announcement to make, and then we'll close out. It's Killing Me will be at Anime Expo July 4th through 7th. I will be dressed as my favorite Naruto character, the 4th Hokage. We will be handing out stickers, interviewing people, and hanging out. Please come find us. Say hi. So,
Yep.
I want to thank our guest, Chris Siders, our producer, Phil, and I'm Shane Kenny, Shane Kenny Comedy on all social media. Chris, where can people find you?
At the THE Chris CHRIS Siders SIDERS on Instagram, chrissiders.com, all that's one word as well. So yeah.
You heard it from him. You're listening to It's Killing Me. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.